he's okay with going first and then he can leave. Is that what you're saying?
Or we could do...
Call to order the special meeting of October 28th of the SOTF.
On the call of the roll for the meeting of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force for October 28, 2014. Member Rummel absent. Member Winston absent. Member Wolf
Here, present.
present. Member Pilpel
Present.
present. Member Hefner
Present.
present. Member David
Present.
present. Member Fisher
Present.
present. Member Hinsey
Present.
present. Vice Chair Hyland
Present.
present. Chair Washburn absent. We have a quorum. I do not have any agenda changes today.
Okay. I wanted to perhaps consider taking Mr. Piccarello's case a little earlier because he has another meeting that he wanted to go to. Would you like to step to the mic, Mr. Piccarello?
Should I call his item?
I just wanted to...
Good afternoon, task force members. I don't mind going early, but Mr. Pitts is also going to attend the first Board of Director open public meeting this year.
Okay.
Thanks to your advisory opinion, they're having one tonight at 6 o'clock. So in fairness to Mr. Pitts, I don't believe I should prioritize and go ahead of him since he's ahead of me on the agenda.
Okay, we appreciate that. Thank you. So no agenda changes then.
It's my understanding.
Can you have a seat, please?
Mr. Pitts, no, go ahead.
It's my understanding that Mr. Piccarello had requested that this item be tabled for the next meeting. I think it's only appropriate that it actually be tabled so that all parties can properly prepare for this agenda/item to be heard. Thank you.
I don't think we heard that from Mr. Piccarello. I think he's here to hear his case.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm mistaken. Excuse me.
No problem. Thank you. So proceed as to the agenda.
Item number 2, file number 14058, complaint filed out by Michael J. against Ria Mercato and the Department of Aging and Adult Service for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.21, 67.26, and 67.27 for failure to respond to requests for public records in a timely and complete manner. You have determined jurisdiction at the last meeting of the task force, and there is a request that Ria Mercado is not correctly named in this complaint, and there is a request to remove her from this complaint.
Okay. Are both parties here? Can you give me a show of hands? Yes. All right. Okay. So, respondent, please approach. You have up to 5 minutes. Complainant, rather. Close it.
Hi, good afternoon. So from the September 23 task force meeting, at the end of the meeting, Mr. Curto, the Director of Contracts, agreed to have the 30th Street Senior Center provide me with the information that I had been requesting, specifically the documentation from the behavior book, which is their key tool, from what I understand, if there's any kind of behavioral incidents. So I met with them on October 3. Mr. Curto, the director of the Senior Center, associate director of the Senior Center, and the chief operating officer of Unlock, the parent organization of the 30th Street Senior Center. And I was surprised to be told that there is absolutely no documentation about any incident about my mom in the behavior book. I asked why. I was told by the director that they're unable to communicate with my mom, and for an incident to be put in the book regarding a participant, the staff at the center need to be able to communicate with that participant. I asked why they did not communicate with me, the family member, the responsible member. I was told that's not the policy. This is what I'm being told by the director, to communicate with family regarding incidents around the participants. So anyways, I was not able to ask further questions of clarification. Mr. Curto asked me to stop, saying that was not the reason for having the meeting. The meeting was only to get information. So I'm just a little confused how this all came to be. When I first met with the associate director, November 25, 2013, I had a meeting with my sister and the associate director. She told me there was information. And I tried to pursue that going up the chain for the grievance process with the CEO of the parent organization Unlock. And I wasn't getting anywhere. And then I went to the Department of Aging and Adult Services. They did an investigation, and in their documentation, they told me that they did see documentation from the senior center. And then when I got the information from the HSA, I believe there was information missing. So anyways, I guess I got my answer that there's no information after I was being led to believe after all this time by both the senior center and the HSA/DAAS that there was information. So I'm very perplexed how this came to be. It's very confusing what this means. And I need to make decisions. I'd like to know where it's the next step. I don't understand why Ria Mercado is being removed. I don't know if that, I'll need someone to identify to pursue this. And I identified Ria Mercado because she is a person who signed off on the investigation report that the DAAS did on my behalf for my mom at my request. The investigator from the DAAS who did it, when I tried to follow up with her, she told me she's no longer the person to contact. It's Ria Mercado. So I'm very surprised and I'm very perplexed, and this is it's very disturbing, especially because it's a city agency and it's agency contracting with the city, and it's very time-consuming, very labor-intensive, and again, I'm stuck where I've been stuck since the beginning, that I don't have any documentation that there was just cause to terminate the services that went on at the senior center, and that leaves it wide open as far as what was the reason, what was the justification, if any. And at this point, because there's no documentation according to the policy and procedure of the senior center, I don't know anything else that's reasonable to assume what could be going on, and I feel like I'm not getting clear information, correct information, and so I haven't had much help from the Human Service Agency, the DAAS, or the Senior Center itself.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that's disappointing to hear. I thought we made some headway last time around, and I guess we'll hear from the respondent here and try and sort this out for you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, task force members. Dave Curto, Director of Contracts at the Human Services Agency. Yes, we did hold the meeting with Mr. J. Onlock was there, and they brought the book, and as explained to us, the only thing that's recorded in that particular document, that book, is face-to-face conversations with the client. So what Mr. J failed to represent to this body is that every time his mother was at the senior center, she was with a caretaker. The caretaker interacted with the staff. The caretaker knew what was going on with his mother because his mother could not answer questions. So I have Linda Lau here, who did the initial case review, and I also have representatives from Onlock who can explain to you what they did. We did provide the notes from the caseworkers to Mr. J after that meeting, as we said we would. There were just none of these notes in this particular book because that book is face-to-face conversations with the client, which couldn't happen with his mother in her condition. So I'd be happy to let Onlock explain to you what they did provide and that the services that they continue to provide to Mr. J's mother. But I think from the department's perspective, we've produced every record that exists.
Yes.
So with that, I think I'd like to have OnLock come up and explain how they run the procedures at the senior center and what they did in this particular case.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm the director of the 30th Street Senior Center, Valerie Villela, and we're part of the OnLock family of senior services. And I have with me Carla Molina-Bordon, who is the Assistant Director of Operations. I think we have provided Mr. Michael J. with a lot of documentation about how we came up with the difficult decision that we don't take lightly regarding a participant in our facility. The Senior Center sees 300 different seniors, all independent, able to understand consequences. So the document that he referred to, the behavior book, is really about when we have an incident and we begin to talk with the senior to work out a plan for them to keep to remain in our center. We did not just abandon Mrs. Michael J.'s mother. We actually, in our facility, have another program which is more appropriate for a person in her condition, which is called Lifeways. So we did not do a lot of face-to-face because we couldn't, but we were also in the process of making sure that Michael J. and the family understood that there were other programs that had services and much more appropriate for his mother. So we gave him everything that we have. We had staff meeting minutes where we have a section where we talk about seniors and how they're doing and whether they are becoming more frail and difficult for us. We have a staff to participant ratio of 1 to 35, so we cannot provide individualized attention for seniors. That's why we take them through and usually do a referral process to a higher level of care. As far as the data, we had staff meeting minutes where we had to redact other seniors' names, but we gave him that. We also gave him a letter identifying specific behaviors that we observed over the time that she was with us. And so we gave him all we have. There's no secrets. There's no somewhere else. And we did let him know along the way that those were the reasons why we believed that his mother could no longer be at the senior center.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, do we need to offer evidence in support of complainant respondent, or since we've already heard this case, do we not need to do that?
I do not believe so. That occurred at the prior meeting.
Okay.
Linda Lau from the Department of Adult and Aging Services, who went out and did the initial case review,
Great.
would also like to relay her results of that review to you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. When I got the complaint from Mr. J, took the information as per our protocol, and also went to the agency 30th Street Senior Center to look at the various documentation to see what's going on. And the main complaint at hand was that Mr. J felt that his mother was not allowed to continue at the center with not a good reason. And just as a brief background, I have mentioned to Mr. J that the congregate meal program, as well as the community services program that the Department of Aging and Adult Services provides funding for, is really targeted for seniors who are able to get around. They're ambulatory for the most part. They are cognitively aware. They understand, and it's really not for seniors who need a higher level of care, because that's not the type of funding that we provide. Those are assisted care living facilities, whatnot. So the center, they do look at when they do the look at the client, when the center is not really appropriate, then they provide counseling to the family members, whatnot, to refer other more appropriate services to serve them. So with this particular situation, I looked at the documentation that 30th Street Senior Center has regarding the various behavioral issues that Mr. J's mother had several incidents over a period of time at the center. And there were, I did see that their social work staff had communication, and that's through emails with Mr. J, inform him of some of the incidences and working with him to identify other kind of facilities like assisted living, other things that he can consider having his mother at. So from the information I see and from the type of program that our department funds, we feel that there is adequate documentation as well as there is good cause for not allowing his mother to come back to the congregate meal program because she wouldn't be getting the right amount of care, and it would actually could be dangerous for her as well as for other seniors. We do, for example, we require that the center has fire drills or other situations where they have to evacuate the center. And if someone really is not able to, even though they may have a caregiver with them, it is going to be difficult. And of course, it also puts the agency at liability. So there are certainly good reasons why that she's not recommended to come back.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, I'm guessing that was over 5 minutes?
That was over 5 minutes.
Please add that time to Mr. J's rebuttal if he should need it.
Yes.
Thank you. So this is now before the task force. Member Pilpel?
I have a couple of questions. Ms. Lau, if you could come back up. And then some comments and thoughts. Do you have page 131 of our packet, the complaint investigation checklist?
Yes.
Okay. And you're familiar with that?
Yes.
In the comments, the checkoff items aren't numbered, but in the comments where you indicated the service provider had documented several incidents, anyway, that happened with the, et cetera. And in the next section, documentation indicated the service provider, da-da-da. Did you get copies of that documentation that you're referring to?
No, I didn't. I reviewed those documentation at the center.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you referred a few minutes ago to the emails to Mr. J that I assume exist. But the other documentation for the first comment section, what documentation was that you were referring to? Could you be a little more specific?
Sure. As previous speaker mentioned, I reviewed some of the staff meeting notes that they had. And also the staff had, there were another time where an incident in one of the conference room, the staff had noted that his mother was, thinking that was the restroom and trying to go restroom there, and it wasn't. It was, so.
Okay, but that was documented in notes. Sorry, it's hard to see you through Victor.
Staff notes that they provided.
I was imagining you through Victor. It's okay. So they were in staff notes. As was indicated, none of this was recorded in the behavior book because that's only for interactions directly with the client.
Correct.
Okay. And is it normally the HSA DAS's policy when you're conducting an investigation to fill out this checklist but not to make copies of the reference documentation?
When it has a lot of personal information and other client information there, yes. I mean, we basically review the information, verify that, what the situation is. Sometimes we may ask for documentation, but in this situation, I did not get copies of that.
Okay.
And so when the client had asked for copies, I wasn't able to share it because I don't have it.
let me turn to Mr. Curto, who it sounds like wants to hop in on this.
Yeah, there's a reason when we do our monitoring, we do not collect certain documents that are confidential or client-related, because then we take care, custody, and control, and it's subject to our record retention policy. We have it in our contract that our contractor has to keep those on file.
Okay.
If we want them, we will request them. But normally, when we go out and do case file reviews, we use our checklist, we review the documentation in the files, and we don't normally make copies and take them back because it passes that
Right.
retention responsibility back to the department.
Understood, and I'm just trying to weigh whether you should have that responsibility or not. Roughly how many investigations would, or maybe Ms. Christensen's a better person on this, how many investigations would you say occur a year that relate to actual clients?
With the DOS clients, probably Linda would have a better handle on that.
I would say this is probably my first
Okay.
with such kind of in-depth investigation. Normally, other situations we get it resolved where both parties are okay with the results.
But I guess what I'm asking is between DAS and other HSA programs, it would seem to me that there's some number, but probably not a large number.
Yeah, it's probably not a large number.
So
If I had to venture a guess on an average year, it's a half a dozen agency-wide.
So if you were to request copies of those documents, the burden on the Department for Record Retention wouldn't actually be that great? And
No,
you could,
well, it wouldn't, but if we were to keep, the problem is do we keep selected files, or we only keep the ones where there's a complaint? So that's really what we're facing. So we with the city
presumably
attorney...
only those with the complaint and for whatever your appropriate retention period is.
It's a point well taken.
Okay.
If we have a complaint or if it's subject to here, we should probably take control of those documents.
Or a copy of, and if you
Or a
have to
copy
ask
of,
them to produce redacted versions so that it's not disclosing information about other clients, then so be it. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess my comment...
It comes with the independent contractor status of our relationship with our providers.
I guess my comment in general on this, we're not here dealing with Mr. J's mother's actual situation, whether she's appropriate for that setting or some other program. That's not our role at all. It's simply to determine whether there were documents that the city had or had access to that were provided or should have been provided. And what I'm understanding through all this is that there are some more issues with how DAS and HSA conducts investigations and how you manage records back and forth. That, for me, is more the issue. It seems like you're dealing, however you're dealing with Mr. J's mother, that's being handled in a separate process. And however that resolves itself, so be it. And there certainly is, 5 or 6 staff here, so the, the staff-to-client ratio is a pretty good number here. So I guess at this point, I'm not sensing that there are additional documents that could be made available. It seems to me that the documents that exist were made available. You've gone to additional lengths to set up a meeting and provide more information. So I'm not... I'm not feeling a thing yet, but I'm open to hearing it.
I had a quick question, and I'm a little bothered by that behavior book incident. So fair enough. If you can't communicate with the client, nothing goes down. However, do you not record the fact that nothing went down? Do you not record the fact that there was a face-to-face meeting was attempted? Or and it seems like this behavior book then determines whether these clients are moved on to other programs, or is there another set of documentation that would control that? If you can answer that, please.
So I think the behavior book is really the terminology that 30th Street Senior Center used to distinguish the type of incidents that they document, and as Valerie Viela had commented, those are face-to-face with the client where they're cognizant about the situation. But the core issue is that there is documentation, and those are through their staff notes, in terms of the incidents, and also notes in terms of documentation, email communications that they had with the Mr. J and their staff about the situation. And those are very valid in terms of, giving information as to what went on. Sometimes there might be phone calls. I remember reading some of the email that said, per our phone conversation, this is that. So they summarize what happened. And because of the unusual situation where the mother has some dementia and unable to communicate, and that's why, Mr. J is the representative for her. And also the caretaker who's taken her to the congregate meal program. She's there to also be the communicator, sort of intermediary for her.
Okay, thank you. Mr. J, a few questions for you, please. If you could approach the mic. So it seems like from what I'm hearing, there was some trail of documents that you were provided with that refer to your mother and her situation, changing situation perhaps. The behavior book worries me, but if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. That's not for us to adjudicate on their process. Having heard their presentation, having had the meeting last week, is there anything else that you feel that you could be provided with? Again, we're not here to rule on how they decide to care for your mother. We're here to rule on the information and whether it's been provided to you. So if you could answer that specifically, what you think might still be out there that would help satisfy your information request.
Give me a moment. So I think there probably is not much more, because I think I've pretty much gotten what exists, which is really nothing. And I do appreciate the efforts to make additional attempts happen, because actually the additional attempts were very helpful in the sense that there's a policy and procedure. This is a book. It's used for all the participants except for my mom. It's also very helpful to hear reports that a senior center cannot deal with elderly people who have dementia. Dementia is very common. It makes no sense. It's also very helpful to get information regarding the contract that the HSA, DAAS did with the senior center, because in the contract itself, the target population ranges from higher functioning to frail. So that's pretty wide expanse, and I expect that someone who's going to get money from the city and say they will provide services to that group will be able to follow through appropriately. It's very easy, unfortunately, to say that I can't communicate with you, I'm not going to communicate with you, and then there's no documentation at all to find out what happened to my mom, part of this vulnerable population, that they're getting money to provide services for.
I agree. On that point there, just so you're on it, let me ask you, that worries me too. A conversation in a hall, does that constitute a client-to-client interaction or a staff-to-client interaction? And if the responses aren't intelligible, therefore it's not documented, that doesn't fly with me. But what they did provide you, as far as emails and phone conversations regarding the condition of your mom, how detailed were those? Do you have any of those with?
So I do not have those. One thing that was helpful when I went to the October 3rd meeting that lasted 15 minutes because there was no documentation, I specifically asked for new information, specifically from the behavior book. What they did give me was, I think, 2 or 3 copies of staff meeting notes, which was supposed to document problems with my mom. I didn't find that helpful because it was pretty much hearsay. What I did find helpful in those 2 or 3 meetings, a copy of the notes, is that they specifically stated that they were going to contact family members of other participants. The name was redacted. So again, I'm getting mixed messages. In the October 3rd meeting, to my face, I was told by the director, we do not contact family members at all. And yet the meetings, the 3 different meetings, was documentation where they contacted family of other participants. So this kind of accessory information, it's not the information that I was anticipating and hoping for. This kind of accessory information can be helpful for me to present my case and to further pursue this, because this is really wrong, obviously wrong. I'll say it.
I agree. Any other members have questions? Hepner, perhaps? No?
Well, my only comment on this is that, if there is no further documentation, which is sort of what I'm understanding to be the case, that does leave you with a situation where, whereby you could, use the lack of information to your benefit in other forums. And I hope that you find recourse where it's due, if it's due, in another forum.
Yes, and again, just on many levels it doesn't make sense. So again, I appreciate the efforts of the task force members, because I did get additional information. Again, it's not what I expected, but I think it can be helpful. And also, another reason why I wanted to come this evening was to share my experience regarding this process of getting public information, and to share the challenges and the difficulties that I've had. So hopefully it will illuminate areas for improvement and areas to make sure that this does not happen to other members of the public, because it's really not okay. And it's really hard to do, to follow through. And when the city is supposed to be helping and the city doesn't help, it's just very, very unfortunate. But I do appreciate your help.
Thank you. Member Pilpel?
Yeah. Look, on a couple.
Member Hines, did you want to go ahead?
I just wanted to wish you good luck, and that I think we're going to do our job in terms of public records. But we wanted to wish you good luck.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Member
Thank you.
Pilpel?
I just wanted to follow up with Mr. Curto. There are a couple of things that are still bothering me about this. Can you assure me that the requirements for contractors for what documentation they have to maintain, the procedures for how complaints are investigated, the fact that a consumer or family member can request an investigation or file a complaint, that there are procedures for all of that and how to get records, that all of that documentation exists. We don't need to see it all, but that it exists, that you have robust procedures for these things, and that we're just sort of trimming around the edges?
Yeah, we do. We have a published grievance procedure, as does OnLock.
Okay.
So, I mean, that would be the recourse at this point in time. I think Mr. J did that, and again...
And if someone calls and says, hey, I have a concern about this, what's your policy, can you send me a copy? You would. It's not... This isn't like something that's buried somewhere.
Absolutely. It's standard language in all of our contracts.
Okay.
That there is a grievance procedure, and they first start with the program level. If they don't get to the program level, it gets escalated to the department. Okay. We go out and do an investigation. I mean, we essentially followed that procedure here. And I think we're all sympathetic to Mr. J's plight about taking care of his mother. Right. But in this particular case, what I find confusing is that each time his mother was there was a caretaker. What was the caretaker communicating to Mr. J about what was going on with his mother? We've been totally silent on that issue, and that's a crucial issue here.
Okay. I'm good with the procedures. Thanks.
Any thoughts?
I mean, it seems to me that we've gone through all the records that exist, and although it sounds like there may be some weaknesses in the procedure, I don't know whether the time to look at weaknesses in procedure is during a case when it appears that everything meets the the letter of the law, if not necessarily the spirit of how things should be proceeding in terms of the best flow of information.
I agree.
I agree.
We're about documentation. We're not the QA review team for, city services.
Yeah, it
do
wasn't
that in
even
our
getting
spare
started
time,
on
but
that
it's a-
side of it, yeah.
Yeah.
So am I sensing there's no violation here?
Probably not.
Is there any motion from any of the members?
Nope.
Public comment.
Let's give complaining and respondent a chance to rebut. Officially, we haven't done that yet. So who would go first, Victor? Is it respondent?
Respondent goes first.
Okay, respondent. You have up to 3 minutes for any additional summary or thoughts. Respondent, that would be Mr. Cordova, et cetera. Yeah.
I mean, as I said, I think we've provided all the documents that exist. Is there room for improvement in some of these programs? I would say absolutely, and we'll certainly be looking at that. But I just don't think there's any more documents that we can provide that would be of assistance to Mr. J in the plight for services for his mother.
Thank you. Complainant, if you'd like to approach, or, sorry, hold on just 1 second. There's some more respondents.
I'd just like to add that in the Unlock organization, we did really do our very best to make sure that Michael J's mother was in good hands and is currently in our Lifeways program, which is a much more higher level of care, where there is a staff to participant ratio. They are prepared and have skills to deal with dementia and other cognitive issues that the senior center doesn't. So we did hand her off to very good care, and I think that this is served as a lesson for us to learn, because we have a lot of different people who age in place with us, and so this is going to be useful to us as well to tighten up our procedures.
Thank you. Any other respondents like to summarize? No? Okay. Mr. J. Up to 3 minutes, and additional time if you'd like it.
So, again, I agree. I probably have all the information that's going to be that existed. Documentation specifically, the accessory information is helpful, and the process to do this is very concerning. The investigator, Lau, says there is information, but he didn't see it, so I don't see it either. It's, again, the process is very disturbing. I'm being told by the director, we can't communicate, so therefore nothing's being done. That definitely should be a violation of rights as far as providing services. It makes me raise a lot of questions about the integrity of both agencies and how they follow through with that, what kind of monitoring contract compliance, aside from the numbers, because a contract is all about the outcomes, how many units of service, how many activities, and so forth. But there's a process to follow through because you're dealing with human beings. This is also the Human Service Agency. And at the risk of sounding crass, it's not a car dealership counting how many cars you make sales and so forth. This deals with human beings. And it's very concerning when it was identified from the beginning in February of 2009 when I brought my mom in and I signed up with the caseworker there. And I explained my mom did have dementia. The caseworker asked me how that would be managed. They said she would have a one-on-one caregiver at all times. That staff person of the senior center referred us to the very first caregiver that my mom had. So she has had a private caregiver in order to help her engage unnecessary and so forth from the beginning. The senior center is very well aware of this. It's very surprising that the issues came up September and October of 2013 only, and then November 1st they got a one-paragraph letter to terminate her. So the process, again, is very concerning. It's very concerning how Investigator Lau captured this process. I actually had a phone conversation with her. She wanted to discuss with me. and she told me there were problems with the collection of documentation and so forth. So I'm being told different stories, and I submitted documentation already about what I'm saying now to you. So this really needs to be followed up. There always is room for improvement, myself included. But again, this is a service that's provided to human beings for a vulnerable population. There should be safeguards and so forth set up and in place. And there was something very obvious in place right from the beginning, that I was a responsible family member for my mom, and in cooperation with the staff, we set it up so that my mom could participate with a private one-on-one caregiver.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any public comment on this case?
Good afternoon, task force members. Thomas Piccarello. I didn't, his complaint was based that he didn't get the documents on a timely basis. I did not hear any discussion by the task force members as to whether or not he got his documents pursuant to the Sunshine Ordinance. And then to ask him what other documents he did not get is sort of nonsensical. How would he know what other documents he did not get? So, the issue, I think, in front of you is whether or not he got his documents in a timely manner. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, public comments closed. Mr. Clerk, quick question. What did we find any order of determination last time, or did we continue this?
It was continued.
Okay. So I think Mr. Piccarello brings up a good point as to whether the documents he was finally provided, the minutes of the meetings, et cetera, were in a timely, and I think at the very least, that might be worth considering. Member Pilpel?
I think as to that, the documents that the city had in its possession, I think largely were provided on a timely basis, and the additional documents, including the staff meeting notes and whatever else that was held by the senior center, was provided subsequently and was arguably not directly required by the ordinance because it wasn't held by the city, but was provided and in good faith. And I'm not sure that there was a specific time frame on that. I regret that there was delay, but I don't think it was undue delay, and I think there was some good faith effort to meet and provide some further information. So I'm not feeling a particular timeliness problem. There are other issues, granted, but I'm not seeing a technical violation there.
Member Hepner?
Yeah, I am feeling a timeliness violation, if only as to preserve the record. The city admits that it responded 16 days later. They acknowledge that response was late, and that that lateness of the response may have been to the fact that they were not sure whether they were legally obligated to provide records, but that communication should have been made within 10 days if they needed to express to the complainant that they were seeking additional time. I don't see it as a big violation, but nevertheless, a procedural violation that I think is worth preserving.
I tend to agree, and I think especially that arm's length contractor issue, we don't want city departments to be able to use that as an excuse not to provide information that ultimately they might be responsible for. Member Wolf, you had something?
I was going to suggest that there shouldn't be a violation. With what Member Hepner just said, I think that makes a ton of sense in terms of that short window. But I do think that there's a question outside of that procedural violation as to whether or not we really have jurisdictional control over or oversight over records that were requested that are of a personal nature and had these various sorts of who should have access to them issues that aren't related to public access to records that really does sort of murk the waters around any sort of non-procedural violation of timeliness of records.
Game starting, I think.
They were cheering for what I said.
Yeah,
Yeah, Josh!
I was thinking of equitable tolling, but yeah.
Member Hepner, would you like to present to...
I'll make the motion. We'll see how it plays out. I'll make a motion for a violation of timeliness, which is Section 67.21B. Yes, within, yeah.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And do we take public comment on the motion?
There's no need to. We've already taken public comment.
Okay.
On the motion to find violation of section 67.21B for timeliness, Member Pilpil, Member Wolf.
We'll pass for now.
Member Pilpil.
No.
Pilpil, no. Member Hepner.
Aye.
Hepner, aye. Member David.
No.
David, no. Member Fisher.
No.
Fisher, no. Member Hinsey.
No.
Hinsey, no. Vice Chair Hyland.
Aye.
Hyland, aye. Member Wolf.
No.
Wolf, no. The motion fails.
Okay. Thank you
That concludes the item.
Thank you all the respondents who came. Mr. Curto, Mr. Jay, good luck. Thank you very much.
Item number 4, file number 13030, complaint filed by Charles Pitts against the Community Housing Partnership and the Human Services Agency as a city agency department which is a party to and/or is administrator of the nonprofit organization's contract for allegedly violating Administrative Code Chapter 12L for failing to comply with a request for information regarding tenants' budget for 650 Eddy Street. Companion associated file is file number 13076, complaint filed by Charles Pitts against the Community Housing Partnership. Jurisdiction was found at the last meeting of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, and there is a letter for your review and approval of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force advisory opinion.
If I may?
Go ahead, Member Pilpel.
We're calling both 4 and 5 together, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So what I did was recall the discussion that we had at the meeting and draft an advisory opinion letter. I spent several days and many hours trying to get it right, and you see that in the packet, page 156, 157. If I didn't get it right, then let's fix it. But I think that this is intended to capture what's happening and my thoughts, which hopefully are the thoughts of the task force. I did discuss it with Mr. Pitts briefly before the meeting, and I did also discuss it with both HSA and CHP, and they seemed somewhat okay with it, but we should hear from them. So that's my intro. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Pilpel. May I suggest perhaps not discussing it with them before a case next time?
The reason that I did that was that we had already heard the matter and decided that we were going to send a letter, and I wanted to just ensure that it was workable.
Yeah, I think that might have been more appropriate, though, in this forum. But anyway.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Clerk?
This is new territory, so if you wanted to invite the complainant and respondent to provide comments on the advisory letter, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay. So why don't we have the complainant first?
Mr. Pitts?
And up to 3 minutes? Well, 5 minutes, what should we do? Do up to 5 minutes. You have up to 5 minutes to comment on the advisory letter and how you feel about it.
I just feel like there's still definitely a problem because I still don't have the information that I requested. I haven't had enough time to review it. I've been having a few problems on my end, but at the end of the day, I still haven't got my information. They've sent everything but the information that I requested. If you look at the packet, they have information regarding breast awareness, a blueprint from another building, a map of Hunters Point, but I still haven't got the information that I requested. They've put barriers in the way of me getting the information that I requested. They want to meet with me. They want to talk with me. They etched out a time. They didn't show up. I showed up. they didn't show up. I mean, they've got all types of excuses, but yet still they didn't show up. And they sent me the information last minute. From what little bit I've seen, the documents are not there, and their minutes from their meetings are just very incomplete. I think the letter will be okay, but I am definitely still having a problem because I have not gotten the information that I requested. At this point, I think they have no desire or intent to provide the information. At this point, I really would appreciate it if Community Housing Partnership act in good faith instead of baiting and switching and running me in circles. I think I'm just asking for a little integrity for this organization, of which I am struggling to find. The letter, I did get a rough glance at it. I think I'll make the assumption that it's okay, but of this 80-page document that Victor's printed out, I would like for them to show me the past 12 months that I requested. My online version, I don't see it. Maybe it's in Victor's version. Maybe they sent Victor a special copy. I don't know. I still don't have my information.
Thank you. Do you need to do public and support?
Would you like
go from
to
the other side.
allow the
Right. Okay.
respondent to?
Yeah. Respondent, if you would approach, please.
Both HSA and CHP.
Yes.
Why are we hearing these cases simultaneously if we're also? I'm confused on what the order that's
Item
happening
4
right
and
now
5 are related cases. I believe that it's requesting the exact same documents, just they were filed at different times, kind of a follow-up. I believe we probably should table one of them and just continue on with one file, because I believe they're that closely duplicated.
Okay.
And we heard this before. We're kind of continuing it. Yeah. Respondents, please approach the mic if you would. There. Thanks. You have up to 5 minutes to respond.
My name is Dara Papo. I'm the Director of Support Services at Community Housing Partnership. We are sorry for the confusion that Mr. Pitts has experienced in this process. We would like the Commission to know that we have submitted the information to you. We have submitted the information he has requested to him. HSA and myself have attempted on multiple occasions to schedule a meeting with him in the past 2 weeks. He wasn't able to make the first time. We came up with a proposed second time, and we had, and I'll let HSA speak to this about the attempts to reach him, that unfortunately we never did hear back from him with confirmation that the meeting would exist. In the information that we've provided is the financial information from the tenant council expenses that he has requested, in addition to the 12L material from our Sunshine Binder. We would be more than happy to schedule a meeting to follow up with him. It's a lot of information and always best to have an in-person conversation.
Thank you. Ms. Christensen, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm not sure I can add much to that. We tried in good faith to have a meeting with him. We understood.
Excuse me, what was your name?
My name is Diana Christensen.
Thank you.
I'm the custodian of records for the Human Services Agency. I wanted to put this one to bed. I wanted to get Mr. Pitts his records. We tried in good faith to do that. We decided to set up a meeting so that which is something that you all recommended at the last meeting, that we have him come to the CHP, look at the binder that exists that they talked about at the last meeting, and where we would give him additional records that went well beyond any requests that he made. We attempted to schedule it. He picked a time. We tried to it was kind of shaky how that was done, and so we tried to confirm that he was going to go. We had at least 3 or 4 emails that went to him saying, "Are you coming?" And we got no response. And last minute, we decided that it wasn't to go because we didn't hear from him. At which point he sent an email to me saying, "Can you send it to us in electronic form?" And we did that. I'm not sure what else we can do. I have it in paper form right here. I can offer the documents right here. These are the documents. These are the only documents we have. I'm not sure what else we do.
Great. Thank you. Quick question for you, Ms. Christensen. Paragraph 3 of that advisory letter, those items that are listed there, those are the ones that you provided electronically, all of those listed in that letter, paragraph 3. If you want to read through those, I'll give you a couple of minutes.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Mr. Pitts, could you approach, please? We're hearing from them that they have provided you electronically those 3 or 4 items listed in that paragraph. Did you receive that email?
I received that email.
And so do you feel you've got everything that you asked for?
I asked for the past 12 months from a certain date, and I would like for them to show them to me.
Right. I believe this paragraph goes further than 12 months.
I mean, from what I've looked at so far, it's not 12 months. Maybe they can show me. I mean, can they show me?
Could you show them that from that folder?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask?
Sure.
May I suggest that we allow them to take a few minutes now and review the items?
Sure.
While we take on while we move on to public comment or something to that nature.
Well, if we can get it resolved now, I'd like to.
Yes.
I'd like to move on, but good suggestion. If you can show Mr. Pitts.
I think this is also why they wanted to have the meeting. Okay.
So, Mr. Pitts, all of the charges for attending council occurred in the last month of the year. And so these are a statement of the money that was spent, and this is the follow-up verification of receipts of the funds that were spent for attending council.
Okay, so what years are those?
This is this last fiscal year, so it's for the past 12 months.
Oh, I mean, but see, she's starting at a date that I didn't even ask for.
Yeah, I understand they're going above and beyond what you'd asked for.
No, she might be going 12 months from this date back, but I wanted 12 months from a different date back, which was in the 2013. So and then this document, does this look like a budget? I mean, it doesn't look like a budget at all.
So there are a number of documents that this document has.
I mean, so I'm actually looking for a budget. I mean, she's talking about different documents, bank statements, et cetera, et cetera. Where's the budget?
Okay.
Have that also.
Show it to me.
We're looking for it.
Member Wolf has it.
Member Wolf, go ahead.
Given that we have 2 cases with apparently the same need for documents, and they both have similar time schedules attached to them, would it make sense while these 2 parties work out what documents exist there to hear from Mr. Piccarello about his status and what's apparently the same request and should maybe be the same file number according to Victor?
It's actually a different thing.
And I think the other thing about it is it's some of the same people administratively from the city and county of San Francisco. So it's almost like having them multitask.
Whoops. Okay, just bear with us here a
I
second.
mean, I think the answer is yes, but they're somewhat different. Mr. Pitts was looking for tenants council budgets for a specific site. Mr. Percarello was concerned with notices and holding of the public board of directors meeting for the organization.
Can I make one comment? Sure. From the last proceeding when CHP's financial officer was here, it was determined that this tenant budget, if you will, was an amount of dollars allocated to the tenants to spend at their discretion, and that the monthly was simply a reconciliation of the expenses expended that month. So it's not a true budget with line items.
That's correct.
So I think with the documents that Mr. Pitt has seen are the expenses against that dollar allocation only. There is no budget.
Agreed.
Yes, that was all explained.
So the question I was going to ask is it because he's asking for a certain range of months, and perhaps what you provided captures some of those months, are you able and or willing to go a further year back into 2012, 2013 to completely cover the range of his original request? Does that help, Mr. Pitts?
I think 2012 and 2013, something that more reflects a budget than whatever they're trying to.
There is no budget.
But there is some type of ledger regarding.
That's what you have in front of you.
What this here?
Yes.
No.
We determined that last time.
Can I finish?
Sure.
They do have some type of documents regarding what they've spent things on, like if they, food, the, play toys. There's documentation like this, and I've submitted it to this body. So they have this information somewhere. I mean, I've submitted it to this body. They say they were going to produce it, and they haven't done it, and.
Okay, Mr. Pitts.
I guess I'm also asking, do they have any account? Where do they spend this money? So you're dealing with 1,000, you're dealing with all this money, and all they have is this.
Okay, Mr. Pitts, if you can just stand aside for a second. Mr. Curto, if you'd like to respond to that.
If you look at the document, it does say tenant council purchase. It says who it was purchased from and the amount. And it runs through that for the month of June. And I see them I don't see them all here. I also see the bank statements of the account, which would correlate to the check numbers for the expenses. So, it is an accounting of it. It's not budget. It's probably not presented in a format that's satisfactory to Mr. Pitts, but it wouldn't take much to do that type of analysis on this.
Well, we're not asking for what doesn't exist. So that begs the question, does something more formal exist that captures this information? And perhaps anything.
If there is, we have not seen it. And the CFO for Community Housing Partnership, there is an expense summary, and this looks like, sorry, it's small print. This is for June of 2014, which basically mirrors this other statement. So these are, if you will, these are abstracts from the general ledger of how these funds were expended. Okay. That's what we're seeing.
So different reports out of QuickBooks or whatever.
Right. So and was that also provided to Mr. Pitts? Okay.
Yes.
So
we also have meeting minutes where items were discussed about who wanted to buy what and where the agreement was made with the community of tenants. We have a range of different types of documentation around what the tenants spent their money on, and we provided that to Mr. Pitts.
The closest thing to a budget would actually be the minutes from the tenants council meetings where choices were made about how to allocate the money. This is simply just reconciling the expenses versus the authorization.
And just out of curiosity, does this all roll up into a city budget somewhere? No. I think that's what Mr. Pitts is maybe angling for.
No, I don't think he is actually angling for that.
Okay.
I think he wants the tenant's budget versus their organizational budget. We provided both.
Okay.
The tenant's budget is not funded through our contract with them. It's funded through other sources, so it's not a part of our contract.
Okay. Very good.
All right. What he's looking for is the authorization from the tenants council versus the expenses if things didn't go as planned. But I don't know, actually.
In the binder, we have the fact that it's a participatory process, and so people have a chance to vote on what they want and how much it is, and the correlating signatures are all being provided.
Okay. So, and can we just establish what was the date range that you provided him? Month to month, year to
The
year?
date range we provided was fiscal year 13-14, which was July 1 to June 30th. Okay. July 1, 2013 to June 30th, 2014.
And would you be able to provide the prior year as well?
We can most
Okay.
definitely do that.
I think, I'm trying to remember what the original date range of the original complaint was, but I think that would more than satisfy, from memory, what was requested. So if that's something you're able and willing to send electronically, I think that would probably satisfy in my eyes.
Send that electronically to
Mr.
Sunshine.
Pitts.
Okay, we can definitely do
To Mr.
that.
Pitts, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think we need to see it. I think
No, to Mr. Pitts.
Yes.
To Mr. Pitts, yes. Just like you did the current year, the prior year, also all the.
And we're happy to do that, but I think we keep on having the conversations of us not being certain that that's meeting the needs of what he's asking for. So we'll do that. We'll be happy to meet with him to discuss.
Okay, I would
hopefully
send
that will
it. I
resolve
would
it.
send it first, and then,
Yeah.
if necessary, discuss.
Sounds good.
That's what I'd recommend. Members of the task force, any thoughts here? We'll have rebuttal in a second. Member Papel?
Yeah, so I just wanted to be clear, in the opinion paragraph, what I was attempting to do was, on a going forward basis, make clear what process should exist, what documentation should exist, what review HSA should do of the procedures. So it was, to the extent that things haven't happened yet, it's because we haven't agreed on an opinion that hasn't issued, and it only becomes final essentially 10 days after it's issued. If there's no review sought by the Board of Supervisors, then it's up to the parties to effectuate it. It doesn't. There's no other process here. This is really something we've not done before under 12L. And apparently people support it.
People have spoken.
Member Wolf.
Member Wolf.
I mean, I'm not certain that this is what's going on, but it seems to me that that Mr. Pitts is not happy with the form of accounting or notation of the way that the Community Housing Partnership is keeping track of the money and presenting that information to him. And that may or may not be the best form of accounting that they're using. But whether or not they are, and whether or not it's even appropriate, as long as it meets the legal requirements of the Sunshine Laws, and as long as they're providing what information does exist, it ceases to really be our purview.
Yeah, I mean, how they account for these funds is really up to them, and not even so much subject to Sunshine or 12L. I mean, they're a nonprofit that it's administering these funds kind of as a, what would you call them, a tenant service. Yeah, I mean, it's like an expendable trust fund in a way. So it's not subject to any city controls about how money is spent. But we're just trying to help facilitate providing the information that he's asked for.
So, thoughts as to where we go next, Mr. Member Hepner?
Well, that would be addressed coming back to the letter here, this advisory opinion. Community Housing Partnership should document the process for allocating funds, approving expenses, and reporting disbursements of the AWA Tenants Council. I think that in the course of doing that, the CHP should consider Mr. Pitts' incident here, and hopefully that would enlighten that discussion and how that reporting occurs exactly.
So in terms of mechanics from this task force, how do we effectuate that?
We need to adopt a letter, this or some version of it, and then again, 10 days thereafter, it sort of takes effect unless somebody appeals it, And this lays out some specific steps that they should do to make it happen. And we don't need to be advised about how that occurs unless there's a subsequent complaint. And we just assume that the right people will do the right thing and things will happen.
Okay. So perhaps we should take some public comment on that thought. Hold on one second. Did we wrap up the rebuttals or not? I don't think we did. Let's do rebuttals. Unless, Member Clerk, did you have something to add? Yep. Okay. Is it respondent first, and then?
Yes.
So, respondent, you have up to 3 minutes for any summary or last thoughts.
And actually, if I could just interject, to provide some context for what I think would be helpful in a rebuttal, if you have had an opportunity to address or to review this advisory opinion, if you could address what in there works and what does not work in there, and then that will inform whether we make any changes to the advisory opinion.
We looked at the advisory opinion. I think it's perfectly adequate, and we can comply with it.
Okay. And if you have any, if there's anything else that you would like to say, that's what I wanted to hear, but if there's any other content for your rebuttal.
I can say that as an agency, we're continually working to improve our policies and procedures. Tenant council is one of the areas that we've been working really hard to make sure that the steps for folks to access the money that is clearly documented is an area we spent a lot of concerted time and effort on in the past year. We have some new policies and procedures that we're going to be starting in the next year that I think are going to be helpful in resolving some of the questions that tenants also have. We want to make sure that tenants feel like we are good stewards of the money, that they have regular information about this, and are working on exactly the things that you mentioned in this letter. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Pitts, you have up to 3 minutes to summarize.
If you look at your advisory letter, it says May 17th and October. To me, at that rate, and I asked for 12 months going back, I should have got something from 2012. I don't think I got anything from January 2013. And I am saying again, because the first time this came here, I definitely believe in the packet was something similar, something emulating a budget. It wasn't an official budget, but it emulated a budget. They gave it a different name, and I could see some of the different expenses. And that document that they sent me, it's not in the packet anywhere. So you can see there's something not. I guess I'm just trying to figure out what's going on, and I figure what I'm seeing is they're telling you one thing, and they're doing something different. It's clear. I didn't get anything from 2012. I didn't get anything from. I believe I didn't get anything from January 2013. So they're telling you one thing and they're doing something else, and I still don't have the information as I requested. And I think it's also wise for them to tighten this up so that the citizenry can actually see where the money is going, where the money's going. And I think it would be good to post it online somewhere so that the citizenry can see. If you don't do a sunshine request, then you might or might not have knowledge or access of where they're spending their money. I feel they want to talk about all the good, feel good, such and such, then they should show all of their fundraisers. We have a tenant council and they're spending money on things to uplift and nurture the community. But at this rate, they're trying to hide it. Show the community you're fundraising to how the tenant council spends their money. Show us. Show all these. Put it in one of them YouTube videos that they're posted online to everybody. And with the Dancing with the Stars and what the property looks like. Show the world. Show the world while they play the music of that guy tap dancing. Show the world this information. I just definitely feel like at this rate, they're hiding it, clandestine hiding information that I definitely believe I should be entitled to have.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, looking at the language of paragraph 3, we start off by saying for this year and last year, but then when we go to the AWA Tenants Council, we talked about the past 12 months. I like to keep that language consistent throughout for the last 2 years, and hopefully we can accept that as amended as a body and move this forward. Do we need to take a vote on that, or can we do as amended? Okay, all right.
Just to confirm, that is third paragraph.
Yes.
Fourth line, to change the past 12 months to the past 2 years.
Yes, please, and consistent throughout. I think that's the.
Those are the only two.
Those are the only two. Okay, that's good. All right. So that's looks like we're probably going to go down that direction. Maybe we can take some public comment on this item. Anybody have any public comment on this item that hasn't yet spoken on either side? Seeing none, public comment is closed.
So,
would you like to make a motion to?
I will move that we adopt the letter as amended.
1 second, and I also want to go back to what you were talking about, either combining the cases or dropping one case and moving forward with one. If you'd like to elaborate a little bit on how that would fit into this advisory letter. I'm just talking mechanics here.
Yeah.
I believe that the files are so similar, we could possibly go forward with file 13030 and to conclude file 13076. It's asking for the same information.
Okay. Mr. Petrellis, please take a seat. Your bright orange jersey is very visible.
You're like a neon light.
We like it, though. Yes.
So I actually think that we can issue this in the way that it's stated. I think that we did get requests under 12L under both files. We've essentially consolidated them for purpose of hearing. I'm not sure procedurally that I like the idea of closing one and just issuing on the other. So
there is no problem with leaving both numbers active.
Yeah. Okay. So I was just going to move that we adopt the letter and issue the opinion with the change to line 4 of paragraph 3 as amended.
Okay. I'll second that.
And then, I have one other comment. I'm sorry. I'm talking like usual. On the CCs, I made it a point to include the executive director of CHP, the director of HSA, the controller, and the person in the controller's office that handles contracts, and the board of supervisors, because they have review authority. Normally, I wouldn't have done that, but I think given that we don't do 12L letters often, we haven't done it before, and because these principals are certainly aware of what's going on, I think it's important to notify them.
Okay.
So we want to be taken seriously, and I think that does it.
Do we need a roll call on this?
Yes. On the motion to adopt the opinion letter and to issue, on that motion, Member Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Member Pilpil.
Aye.
Pilpil, aye. Member Hepner.
Aye.
Hepner, aye. Member David.
Aye.
David, aye. Member Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Member Hensy.
Aye.
Hensy, aye. Vice Chair Hyland.
Aye.
Hyland, aye. The motion passes.
Okay. Public comment?
Item number 3, public comment. Members of the public may address the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force on matters that are within the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda.
Yeah. Thank you very much, members of HSA and community. Always. And Mr. Pitts, thank you.
Good afternoon, Michael Petrellis. I'd like to again advocate that this body get funding to put these meetings on Channel 26.
Right next to the Giants.
I'm sorry?
Right next to the Giants. Right next to the Giants.
Okay, yeah, and you can broadcast it in Civic Center. The good work that this task force is doing needs to get out to more of the taxpayers. Many folks are not going to read the minutes. They're certainly not going to come down here to attend the meetings. I think that you're already ahead of the curve in that you're meeting at City Hall. I recently waged a battle with the Health Commission across the street. They did not want to move into City Hall to hold their meeting, so Barbara Garcia allocated funds to install cameras across the street. Last week I went to the Fire Commission down at 2nd and Townsend, and they are also dragging their heels about getting on television. And part of their excuse is that it's inconvenient for the command staff to come from 2nd and Townsend to City Hall if they were to meet here in City Hall. In 2014, we need every commission, every task force, every body that has members who are appointed by the mayor or by the Board of Soups to air their meetings on TV. I hope the next time that I come here that folks are seeing my Giants Orange on TV. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments?
Thomas Piccarello. First, I want to acknowledge Mr. Oka's presence today, and I do want to thank him for his service on the task force. Mr. Oka was a very strong sunshine advocate, and he will be sorely missed. Secondly, I am troubled and disappointed by the lack of attendance at tonight's meeting. I see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 11 members. That's unfair to complainants that are in front of you, as you know. It requires 6 votes. So you're requiring 6 out of 7 votes, and it's unfair. I don't know what your schedule is the next couple of months, but if you're only going to have 7 members, perhaps you shouldn't have the meeting. You're really not benefiting the complainants by requiring them to get 6 out of 7 votes. And specifically, I want to call out Member Winston. Member Winston's absence is not good. So you need to look at your bylaws and look at your policies about removing a member who has other things besides task force sunshine issues in front of him. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on issues not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, public comment is closed. I think I'd normally take a break here, but let's push on with Mr. Piccarello's case since we have all the required people here and we have a meeting to get to. So if you can please call the next item.
Item number 6, file number 14055, complaint filed by Thomas Piccarello against the Community Housing Partnership and the Human Services Agency as a city agency department, which is a party to and or is the administrator of a nonprofit organization contract for allegedly violating Administrative Code Chapter 12L.4 for allegedly failing to provide an agenda and adequate notice for the CHP meeting of May 27, 2014.
Did we deal with jurisdiction on this?
Yes, jurisdiction was found at the last meeting.
Great. So the complainant, you have up to 5 minutes to present.
Thank you. The fact that the CHP is having their first open board of director meeting tonight indicates to me that your draft letter is efficacious. It worked. So I thank Mr. Pipel for drafting it. There might be factual inaccuracies in the draft. Specifically, the initial investigation, if you recall your packet material, and I'm sure you all read your packet material before tonight's meeting, the HSA's initial recommendation was that my claim was without merit. So that's not reflected in the draft advisory opinion. I think that you need to indicate that HSA, as I indicated in an email to you, was perfunctory and half-assed in terms of their investigation as to whether or not CHP was complying with 12L. Secondly, on their website, I noticed, though, that they're not having a second open board of director meeting this year, which is mandated by 12L. So perhaps some stronger language to both CHP and HSA telling them 12L mandates 2 open board director meetings a year would prompt them to have a second one that is required under 12L. Thank you.
Thank you. Respondents, please approach.
Good evening. My name is Jeff McDonald. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Community Housing Partnership. And I would like to just let the Commission know that we do have another open board meeting scheduled for November 18th, and that was noticed timely earlier this month. So there is a second, and that's about the only response that I have at this time.
Okay, thank you very much.
HSA?
Would HSA like to present or make any comments? It seems like it's the Dave Curto night tonight.
Yeah, I wish the cheers were for me as well. I assure you, we are not half-assed about our approach to monitoring and looking at these things. So I do take a little bit of offense at Mr. Picciarello's characterization of that. We simply went out and looked. They had the 2 notices. As I stated before, we didn't know that the location had been changed. All of that has been corrected. The notices are properly noticed. There are 2 of them this year. And I think the record speaks for itself at this point.
Thank you. Members of the task force, Member Pilpel.
So a couple of things in response to the comments. I chose to word in the first paragraph that HSA had determined that the notice was provided, but that upon review that the meeting was not held at that location. I chose not to include from the record below that initially they thought everything was okay. So that's true in the record, but I didn't think that it was material to the opinion. As to the opinion, again, I was trying to think on a going forward basis what made sense procedurally, and I thought that this laid out some things both for CHP and for HSA to follow up on. I also thought for a long time about whether we should opine as to whether this constituted material breach of the contract, which is one of the provisions of 12L that a department can find if a contractor has failed to meet the 12L requirements. That can be a basis for termination. I didn't want to get into that. I thought that was very complicated legal territory, and so my thought was, again, by notifying the Office of the Controller and making the statements in here about HSA and their monitoring of the contract, that they were properly on notice. If they chose to escalate the matter, they might. I'm not sure that we also had a complete factual record about calendar year 2013 and whether the 2 meetings a year requirements are calendar year, fiscal year, or some other basis. So that's why I didn't go any farther on that, but I did very much appreciate the issue that Mr. Picciarello brought and framed, and I thought that this helps going forward in terms of procedures for everybody, and that this was stuff that CHP could live with and should do. And it sounds like some of that's happening even tonight. So, thank you.
So am I correct in assuming this is somewhat similar to the last advisory letter in terms of mechanics?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And if there's anything in here, just like we fixed the last one, if there's anything in here that's wrong or off or that we could change, now's the time, and let's do it.
Yeah.
If it's good to go, then let's adopt it as is.
Okay. Members, any further discussion? Let's do rebuttals.
Are there any rebuttals from the respondent? There does not seem to be any rebuttal from the respondent. Is there any rebuttal from the complainant?
Well, I apologize if I offended Mr. Curto. Responding to Mr. Pipel, yeah, I understand that under 12L, whatever you decide, whatever advisory opinion you render, one can then challenge that to the Board of Supervisors. But the bottom line is, it's not binding on the nonprofit. Unfortunately, it's not binding on the nonprofit. So you or the Board of Supervisors really don't have any kick to the nonprofits. But what you do have is you have some juice with the HSA, the oversight people. That's why the advisory opinion should be more strongly worded. Your function, if you're interested in sunshine, is to tell the oversight agency, whether they're DPH or HSA, they're not doing their job with the nonprofits. Because quite frankly, the nonprofit can totally disregard your advisory opinion. And even if it comes from the Board of Supervisors, the nonprofit it's not binding on them. So the nonprofits are very streetwise when they lobbied this 12L. And, perhaps in another time you can have a discussion of 12L and whether or not it should even be in existence, because there's really no transparency and sunshine regarding nonprofits. So I would have a stronger advisory opinion, just letting HSA know they didn't do their job. And that's the only oversight you have that is binding in relationship between members of the public and a nonprofit. Thank you.
Specifically, Mr. Piccarello, what language would you like to see in there?
Well, that HSA did not do their oversight due diligently. I only came to the task force because Mr. Curto said my claim was without merit. All right? So that tells me that HSA is not doing the oversight that they're compelled to do pursuant to their contracts with CHP or 50, 60 other nonprofits. The HSA and other government agencies, they have to do a better job because there's nothing that you can't touch nonprofits when they don't comply. So you have to kick the agency that has the oversight and let them know that they're not doing their job. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, what's that? Based on
comment?
What's that?
General public comment?
Yes, general public comment. I don't think we did.
Not on this issue.
Not on this. Oh. That was general public. This is, sorry, public comment on this issue.
Oh, on this issue, okay. Yeah, I already did general.
Well, we just need stronger language, and we need to send a message that this body doesn't give an exemption or immunity to the nonprofits. Some of the things that I've experienced with Community Housing Partnership has been quite horrific. It's, violence in front of the building, violence in the building, racial slurs and derogatory slurs regarding women, like female dogs. It just seems like all of these are being almost endorsed, if not supported, by Community Housing Partnership. They supported by their inaction. So this is part of my scenario as why you should have much stronger language. It just seems like they have a limited immunity here. They have full immunity with the rent board. Where do we get? What does the citizen do to have?
Please keep your comments particular to this case and HSA and CHP. Thank you.
I mean, I'm just trying to stack, ideas and information as to why you should have stronger language in this document. The citizens who live under community housing partnership, they have no protection except for finding a lawyer, which is very hard under these people. I mean, they lobby with the board of supervisors, and we don't even have. I just feel we don't have full property rights. This document needs stronger language so that we can at least pretend we have some type of protection.
Thank you. So, as far as amendments to this letter, I'm in agreement with Mr. Piccarello. I'd like to see something, and I'm looking at it, there is some reference to HSA being the oversight on this, but perhaps something that's a bit clearer on that, a bit stronger, maybe for us, 2, 4, 6 years down the road, this task force considers this again. This goes towards us writing better, clearer orders of determination, advisory letters, etc. I think it's a fair point.
I would say that given the complaint or the request that we got from Mr. Piccarello, I tried to craft this as strongly as I could within the confines of 12L, which unfortunately aren't that strong. I agree. And I think that CHP and HSA are on notice. This has some fairly strong language. It's being sent to the appropriate folks. It says that there was essentially a violation, and it's up to them to figure out what to do with it. I would suggest, Member Highland, Vice Chair, Acting Chair Highland, that perhaps one thing that we can do at EOT or at the full task force is hold another hearing about 12L at some point, discuss both whether it's strong enough, what to do about it, what city agencies have done, what nonprofits do to comply or not comply. We've talked about that before, and I think that may be a course. There also are other discussions underway in the city with contract managers about improving their compliance reviews and checkoffs. It's been represented to me that agencies don't either get copies of notices that are sent to the library and the Board of Supervisors or ensure that those meetings actually occur as they're noticed. They just ask the agency says, yes, we held those meetings, check, right? Well, there can be further documentation to support that. There are other things that we could do. This isn't a hearing on all of 12L. This was specific to this allegation, and so I did what I could under those confines, and I think it does it.
Okay. So perhaps we can move forward with a motion to approve as.
It sounds like they want to say something, but I'm happy to make that motion.
Yeah, and just briefly, I'd just like to advise the commissioners and the audience of how the city does monitor and how the corrective action works. And this is a citywide policy. So when we find a violation such as this one, and I'll be the first to admit that when this initially came up, I looked at the 2 letters and said, they gave proper notice. I didn't go and look into the files to see that the meeting had actually changed places. Our records management team did that and pointed it out. So I stand corrected on that. Mr. Piccarello, completely correct. But when we find a violation, we put the nonprofit under a corrective action. And if that corrective action stays open for more than 2 fiscal years, they move to what's called an elevated concern. If it's still not fixed, they move to a red flag, and once your agency is red flagged, you can receive no further funding. So there are safeguards citywide for the monitoring that we do adhere to.
No funding and no further contracts.
No funding and no further contracts. That is correct.
And is CHP in that corrective status now?
CHP is in the corrective action for their notification of the public meetings. Once they've had these public meetings and for 2 consecutive years and shown that they've noticed them properly and they've held the meetings, that corrective action will come off the record.
Okay. Ms. Christensen, did you want to say a few things?
Yeah, I wanted to say that the letter it makes a statement that CHP did not hold the 2 meetings, which is correct so far, but it won't be correct as of next month. That, in fact, they are in the process of holding them. At the point that they were notified that they didn't make the correct notices, they made, or at least showed good faith in making the corrections, and they've made notice for their meeting both tonight and for November, and so they will have the requisite 2 meetings in a year.
Thank you. Mr. Piccarello, if you wanted to add anything, you're welcome. Since they took some extra time, feel free.
Yeah, just for clarification, last night I went on the CHP website, and they only showed one board of director meeting tonight. The November meeting, I'm glad to hear that you're having the second one this year. Thank you very much. It's not on their website, so they probably send it to the clerk's office and the library, but it would have been convenient and helpful to put it on the website. You have tonight's meeting on the website, why not put November's meeting? And then, another idea, perhaps you can even have an agenda. You know, a 12L doesn't mandate an agenda, but you probably should have an agenda when you post the meeting, so the members of the public can see what you're going to talk about and then decide whether or not they want to attend, go all the way out to 5th Street and attend your meeting. So you should also have an agenda when you post your notices. Thank you.
All of which we could talk about at a hearing on 12L.
Yeah. Thank you.
I was just saying, all of which we should talk about at a hearing about 12L.
Yeah, that's a larger topic.
All of that being said, I would so move to adopt the letter as drafted, I guess.
Do I have a second? Second, thank you. Mr. Clerk?
The motion is to adopt the letter without, as is, on that motion. Member Wolf?
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Member Pilpil?
Aye.
Pilpil, aye. Member Hepner?
Aye.
Hepner, aye. Member David?
Aye.
David, aye. Member Fisher?
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Member Hinsey?
Aye.
Hinsey, aye. Vice Chair Hyland?
Aye.
Hyland, aye. The motion passes. Would you like to take a recess?
Yes, I think we can take maybe a 15-minute break.
How about 10 minutes?
Fiona, how would you like
We can do one more case.
one more case? Okay.
Sorry.
All right. I
Sorry
stand
about that,
corrected.
Fiona. You're good with one more?
Yep.
Awesome.
All right. Okay.
Next on the agenda is item number 7, file number 14066, complaint filed by Michael Petrellis against Tara Collins, City Attorney's Office, for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.21 and 67.25 for failure to respond to immediate disclosure request in a timely and/or complete manner, dated May 30th, 2014. I do have an additional document for the members.
Okay. Member Pilpel, could you join us, please?
Yeah. I'm with jurisdiction.
Thank you.
What's that?
With jurisdiction.
Yes.
Okay. All right. But we.
He's absent. We've got quorum. He's not here.
I just don't like him running around back there.
Who does?
Mr. Pilpel? Member Pilpel. Soon to be former Member Pilpel. Please approach your chair.
This just in?
And we're looking for jurisdiction.
Matt, is Matt here?
Do any of the parties dispute jurisdiction in this case? No, I'm seeing no's. Okay. We can pass without objection.
Is there a motion?
Do we need a motion?
Yeah.
So moved.
Is there a mover to find jurisdiction?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can I assume that the motion to find jurisdiction passes without objection?
Without objection.
There is no objection to jurisdiction.
And there was no public comment.
None. All right.
The complainant is...
Mr. Petrellis, you have up to 5 minutes.
I think this is a perfect example of the horrible problems we have with the city attorney's office. I made a request for emails back in May. There's no question that these public records existed. Emails from Tara Collins. She is the right hand to Dennis Herrera. I, as always, sent copies of my request to several people in the city attorney's office, because I'd like for everyone to see that I have filed a request, and hopefully it would expedite getting the responsive records. Also, at the end of my request, I asked for a confirmation that they had received it. I never got the confirmation, so I filed a complaint with the Sunshine Task Force. As we all know, this month in October, you scheduled a hearing about this matter, and the response from the city attorney was they wanted a 1-month continuance, or a continuance. I'm not sure how much more time they wanted. I've been waiting 4 or 5 months to get these records, and the city attorney is saying they want a continuance, but they're not stating why. This continuing problem with the city attorney, who is supposed to be the enforcer of Sunshine, is a blot of shame on Dennis Herrera's record and a blot of shame on his entire staff. So I rejected their request for the continuance, and I believe it was 4 days later, Mr. Matt Dorsey sends me an email apologizing for, and it's a quote, tardiness and neglect. He doesn't really explain why they've been tardy or neglectful, but he apologized, I believe, 3 times in this email. There would be no need to apologize if they had complied. So the next day, Mr. Matt Dorsey then informs me that the records are so voluminous that they are going to post them to their website. They've created a page under resources at the city attorney's city site, and it says Michael Petrellis' records request, and there are 6 volumes of the documents I requested. Now that is a major step forward, I believe, in terms of Sunshine from a city agency, and it is something we really need to look at in the larger context of documents that are released to a requester. Put it on the website of the agency. I'm losing track here. So we've had some really terrific development come out of this awful situation that is too often the case with the city attorney. They don't communicate with you, or they they just run you around ragged. They want delays. And here we are now at the task force with this matter when we all could be watching the game. Why? Because the city attorney and his staff are clearly not committed to Sunshine and working with the public to provide transparency in a shorter amount of time than 5 months. We'll see what the city attorney has to say.
Thank you, Mr. Petrellis. Are there any members of the public offering statements in support of the complainant? Seeing none, respondent, please approach.
Documents, if I...
Thank you.
I'm Matt Dorsey from the San Francisco City Attorney's Office. Mr. Petrellis is right, and I got to say, in a dozen years with the city attorney's office, I think this was perhaps the most colossally mismanaged sunshine request we've ever had. I take responsibility. It's my unit. I should have overseen this more closely when it came to my attention that we had not been providing responses on a rolling basis. I worked with some of the lawyers, and we responded as quickly as we could. I'm embarrassed on behalf of the office. This isn't what the city attorney's office is about. We have made some changes about how we're going to handle it. I'm going to make sure that I play a personal role in this moving forward. I apologize again to Mr. Petrellis. If there's a good outcome from this, it's that we have taken steps to make sure that we're going to do this better. And if it is maybe that's the way we should handle sunshine requests, is just to post them on the website. I know in this case it was 68 megabytes of PDFs, and it was just maybe a little too unwieldy for email, so we wanted to do that. But I'm willing to stipulate that this was a violation. I apologize for wasting your time and taking you away from the World Series.
We'd be here anyhow.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any members of the public in support of the respondent? Seeing none, the matter is before the task force. Member David.
Mr. Petrellis, come on up. No, actually. Good. Okay, so.
Save that one for me.
You're next.
Okay. Sorry, Member Fisher's distracting me. What I want to know, so it sounds to me like the city attorney's office, what I just heard, fully admitted that you're right, they're wrong. What would satisfy you out of from the task force? What are you looking for us to do? Find a violation? I mean, tell me what would be satisfying to you to find this closure in this case.
Yes, I'd like for the task force to take a vote on the matter of, was there a violation in Tara Collins not providing me with the public records in the amount of time required by the law. That would be enough, okay? The reason why I didn't withdraw this complaint is because I felt it was very important to have the task force consider the entire matter and to look at it in the larger context of the ongoing problems many of us have with the city attorney's office.
So I just want to follow up. So basically, I want to make sure I hear you correctly, that if we put it on the record, if we vote and put it on the record that there was a violation, that would be would be a satisfactory outcome for you.
Right. A violation about responsive records did exist. They did have them, but did not provide them in the required amount of time.
And I know Member Fisher is going to ask this question, so I'll just beat her to it. Did you get all the information? Have you received all the information that you were looking for?
Yes, and I will say on the record, I am also quite happy that they provided me with documents I didn't ask for. And though my boyfriend may claim I look at government documents as the new porno, I think these documents may be of value to other people. And I applaud the city attorney for making all 6 volumes available in a few clicks on their website. That is major.
Thank you. May I, through the chair, I was just wondering, would it be premature to make a motion at this point?
I think let the response.
You can reserve your spot to do that.
Perfect. Okay, very good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other members? Member Pilfeld.
So,
You have to stay here. You can't go yet.
Mr. Dorsey, come on down.
Mr. Petrellis, have the seat, please. Thank you.
Couple of questions. First of all, can you... come up. Yeah. Can you tell us a little more about what changes have happened in the office as a result of this? You alluded to that. You said you're taking, steps. You're part of the loop. You're out of the loop. You're whatever.
Sure. So there's been a couple of staffing moves. I'm going to take an active role in this. I want to invite activists and members of the task force and anybody who's interested in this to approach me if you feel that there's a better way that we can be doing it.
Tell us what
I
you're
really
doing.
do believe
when you
in-
say there have been staffing changes and you're part of the process. What does that mean?
I'm going to be taking, so I'm the communications director of the office. I want to take a more active role in how we do this.
Have you replaced
I don't know
Mr.
that I will always be the person here. We may get
us something about Mr. Zittrain that you're not saying, or what?
Have you replaced?
To me, it's really more about the principles.
Just a quick question. So is Mr. Zittrain no longer communications?
Correct. He has moved to a different team.
I understand. Okay.
Okay.
That's where we weren't clear on. That makes sense. Okay.
Beyond that, actually, I just would hope that the record could reflect. There's one person in the office who I have an enormous affection for, one of the most conscientious employees, and that's Tara Collins, who was really blameless in this. It was her emails, but it was the responsibility of my team to collect those. It was the responsibility of some other folks to make sure that redactions and withholdings were appropriate. I don't know if there's a way for me to stipulate that this was a violation on behalf of the city attorney's office. I'm happy to do that. But Tara is such a hardworking person. She's gone on to get her doctorate degree. She's no longer with the office, but I would hate for this to somehow taint her record or prevent her from getting a car loan or whatever sort of things happen with a finding like this.
Who is now Matt? Who is now the confidential assistant to the city attorney?
Brittany Feidelberg.
Okay, don't know. And then, for me, in our packet material, I assume you looked at the packet material. There wasn't much. The complaint was filed. Hold on a second. June 27th, roughly a month after the initial request. Victor referred it to your office, actually not you, to Tara and Gabriel, July 1. July 1. Can you tell us why it took from July 1 till October 22nd for your office to acknowledge and deal with and da-da-da-da? Can you talk about that time period more so than May for a second?
With voluminous requests, there is a process that a rule of reason that we'll sometimes invoke in which we'll inform the requester that we're going to devote a reasonable amount of time to the request. But in any case, we're going to respond to the request. We may not get it within the 10-day deadline, but we're going to work incrementally to do that. I don't think we've applied this. Maybe years ago, you may recall, there was when we had voluminous. I think there was an understanding that we were going to be responding. I think some of us thought that we were. I don't want to get into the details of it other than I think what's important is that city departments and city officials should face the music, and when they're wrong, say they're wrong. I want my department to be the sunshiniest department in city government. I think that we should be committed to transparency and openness. I grant you, as the lawyer for the city, we are going to be the bad guy sometimes in saying that there is a legal reason for withholding, but only when there is a legal reason for withholding.
Matt, I get all of that. Okay. What I'm getting at is because there was an email from this task force to your office, not to you, but to two people in your office on July 1, which requested a response within 5 business days. There was no response in July. There was nothing, until last week. And I'm noting that, in our next case, we're going to hear from Ms. Krell, and she took efforts to respond within a week to an email from Mr. Young. And I'm wanting to hear why there was nothing in July from your office either saying, we know, we're on it, we get it, we don't know, we're figuring it, something, why that also went unanswered and, nothing appeared to have moved on this until last week. That's what I'm trying to figure out here.
I honestly do not have a good answer for that.
When did you assume your post there?
Matt's been there for 12 years.
2002.
Yeah.
But as Director of Communications, when did you?
2002.
Yeah, he's been there. But a couple other people have been doing Sunshine under Matt's general direction. But anyway, you were saying...
And admittedly, less than... I should have managed this more closely. Okay. So I accept responsibility also.
Member Pilpel, are you moving towards willful? Is that what you're leaning towards here, or what?
I'm exploring, and I don't know that I'm feeling willful. I just wanted to get a good sense of how this, to the extent that this fell through the cracks, how, if possible, who and what is being done to fix it. I hear that you're taking an active role. I hear that things were good,
Personnel changes, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I mean, at a minimum, was Ms. Collins still with the office July 1?
She was. But the fact of when Ms. Collins left the office is really immaterial, because even when in her absence, we still have access to her emails.
You do?
Yeah.
This is interesting. This comes into play in other
So that wasn't a key fact. And as I mentioned, I hope Tara Collins isn't impugned in this or named. I don't want to seem like I'm evading the question. It's important, I think, to focus on the solutions to make sure that it doesn't happen again. I don't have a good explanation for why it happened. I'm committed to making sure that it doesn't happen again.
All right. I'll hold my other question to the next case because it's more relevant to that, but thank you.
Okay. And Member Wolf, and then Mr. Petrellis, you can summarize.
Mr. Dorsey, why did the emails surface at the time that they did? So, you've spoken to how it was your responsibility that they didn't arrive before they did. It just so happens that this was scheduled for the Sunshine Task Force, and shortly before the Sunshine Task Force was when these emails did surface. Why didn't they surface 2 weeks ago, a month ago? Why was the timing such as it was in conjunction with this meeting?
Candidly, I read Michael's post on Facebook about the status of this request, and at that time I wasn't aware that we had not been providing. My fault. I should have been overseeing this more closely. I immediately, Monday morning, came in, talked about it. We all went to work on making sure that we got these emails, went through them, redacted them. I don't have a good answer for why this happened. I don't.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just think it's important that I'm here to face the music and say, Michael's right, we're wrong.
I believe that in addition to that, when I was preparing the packet, I did call over to inquire if there was going to be a response.
Great.
Okay.
Can I just ask one more question? If Gabriel is doing something else now, are you going to get another assistant who will be a Sunshine person?
So for the time being, I'm going to be the point person on Sunshine.
Right.
And I think that I want to make sure that if there's ideas that people have for how we can do a better job, I want to make sure that we
are open to
hear them and we're open to that. I always try to take a cooperative approach when people have Sunshine requests, even when there's a complaint. Even if there's a finding of wrongdoing on the part of the office, I'm always committed to keeping an open door.
I guess what I'm asking is if and when you get a new assistant, you may want to introduce that person, and we may want to talk about what your division of responsibility is for how that works, because now we've had a few people through that, and we want to get it right.
Yeah.
I know you want to get that right. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Petrellis, if you'd like to rebut and summarize.
Yes. A couple of months ago, I had a complaint about Mr. Dorsey's calendar, and he was out of the office. And I forget the time period, how long it took to find out if anyone in that office could access his work calendar and travel expenses. I think those were the public records I was looking for. The city attorney's office did not have a policy in place for accessing an employee's records should they be ill or stuck back east in a snowstorm. I would like to know what changed back then in terms of making sure when a sunshine request comes in for a known public document that the city attorney is going to have access to the person's computer. I heard promises back then that they were going to make a policy about this. What happened? I'm bringing it up because Mr. Dorsey is now saying they're making changes regarding my latest request for documents and how they messed up with it. Well, it's real easy to come here and say these things. The proof in the pudding is something in writing from the city attorney's office about what changes exactly they are making. I would also like to address the matter of the power of this body. I believe that getting these complaints before you can lead to the documents being produced before we even come here for a hearing. And I think that's really terrific. And I have looked over what they released, and they are the documents that I wanted. Why did I have to wait 5 months? That is not okay. And I'm also really concerned about folks who are less tenacious than I am, who won't go to Facebook or their blogs and say, hey, I'm having this awful trouble with this government employee. So the value of this task force has to be reinforced. That's my rebuttal. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there a motion, Member David?
Do you want the book?
Take it, Doug.
Yeah. I will make a motion to find the city attorney in violation of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force for not responding in a timely manner. Mr. Pilpel or Mr. Hepner, what?
67.21B.
67.21B. Thank you very much.
Second that.
You want B?
And we're naming the city attorney and not...
Yeah, I would suggest the city attorney, not Ms. Collins.
That's what I named the city attorney.
Just making sure that's
Correct.
clear.
Yeah. And I'm sorry.
If I could just butt in for a quick second, that this was an immediate disclosure request, which falls under section 67.25. So I believe that's actually the violation we'd be finding instead of 67.21 subsection B.
Yes, the original was an IDR.
An immediate disclosure request. There was an IDR that you made originally. Okay.
So it was under 25, yeah.
Okay.
It's 25.
So 25A.
However, B talks about the voluminous nature. And the
They
extension.
still have to have a response by the close of business of the next business date. They concede. So
Right.
I think it's 25A.
Okay, does the seconder accept the...
Yeah.
Okay,
So, comments?
sure.
I mean, Mr. Dorsey has come in here, he's thrown himself on our mercy, and we definitely see a violation here. My suggestion would be, pulling him back to another meeting is just going to take everybody's time. I say we just kind of give him a warning on this, don't do it again, and move on.
A warning on this and not find a violation?
Oh, no, definitely find the violation, but I don't think we should be taking any
Not
action or
refer it,
referring it. But definitely put it in the records so that if, heaven forbid, he comes back 2 months later, we know about it.
I just want to clarify. I think I understand what Member Fisher is saying, is that let's officially find a violation, and I'm in agreement with this, put it on the record, but let's not refer it to any committee.
CNA or...
Yeah.
I disagree with that. I'd like to see some of these things that are going to be put into effect, and I think that's what Member Pilpel was driving at earlier. So if perhaps Mr. Dorsey would like to, within a reasonable time frame, send us a document saying, what has been done, I think I'd be okay with that.
Well, I'm sorry, through the chair. So are we saying, first of all, I think it's at the call of the chair as to whether it gets referred to a committee or not.
Right.
I think that's the first thing. So I guess I'm asking, is your thought that what you would ask of Mr. Dorsey would be to provide us with a letter and not necessarily?
Yeah, just a document, listing changes and...
That's okay.
and
I personally just don't think it's worth his time or our time to bring him back to one of our
I think a letter.
bodies.
I think a letter would suffice in this case.
Okay.
Member Wolf.
I mean, I think in terms of this case, the sort of documenting it and moving on is more than sufficient. But as Mr. Dorsey explained, they are going through a process of sort of refining the city attorney's policies and approaches, and it seems like referring him not in regards to disciplinary for what happened, or I don't think we even call it disciplinary, but not in regards to follow-up from this incident with Mr. Petralis, but in terms of moving forward, referring it to meet with the appropriate committee to work collaboratively to find the best policies seems to make a lot of sense and is kind of separate from the actual violation.
That's true. Mr. Dorsey, would you approach a second? Just a quick question on this. So as you probably know, we have subcommittees that handle helping departments comply with or help craft policies for Sunshine. If you think that's something of value, we can schedule this for a couple of months down the road to help with that process. If you'd like to take a stab at it on your own and feel that you have enough traction to get something, and then give us a reasonable time frame where you'll send us a letter to this task force saying these are the steps we've taken, these are the steps we still are going to take, something along those lines, that would be fine too.
Yeah.
What would be your preference?
Why don't I write a letter, and if there's a committee that you feel, or subcommittee you'd like me to go to just make a status report on how we're doing on things, I think that's fine.
And what's a good time frame for that letter, would you say?
Do you want to say 2 weeks?
Well, you can take longer than that. Okay. You can, how about by December 31st? Is that reasonable?
Yep.
Okay.
Sooner's good too, but
I think that's reasonable. We'll give you 2 months.
May I call the question?
Sure.
Public comment? I don't
So,
believe we've taken public comment.
Yes, can you reread the motion, Victor, and then we'll take public comment on that?
Yes, the motion is to find the Office of the City Attorney in violation of Sunshine Ordinance Section 67.25A for failure to timely respond to immediate disclosure requests. In regards to that motion, I believe we are requesting a letter of action and proposed new procedures to be submitted to the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force by December 31st.
Hold that thought. Can I change that to November 30th just so we wrap it up by year end? I think you're right. And would that work, Mr. Dorsey, 5 weeks from now? Okay, thank you.
That shall be
Everybody okay with
November 30th, 2014 is the due date for the letter of action and proposed procedures.
I'll comment on that in a second, but we should take public comment.
Okay, public comment on that motion? Seeing no public comment is closed. Member Pilpel.
Yeah, on the letter, and I guess I'm speaking to Matt a little bit on this. There was a separate letter a few months back on the supervisor of records process and annual report. I think you can reference that, but not repeat that in this. I think this really needs to discuss how you handle public records requests, and again, this sort of touches on the next case, regardless of who it goes to, how those get collected and dealt with. I don't know how much you need to name names, but that you've got a collection process, a redaction process, et cetera, that there are steps that you take.
Yeah.
And to the extent that you're invoking the rule of reason, how that happens, that requesters are notified, that you make an acknowledgement, even if that's not at the same time as the response. That it's sort of a comprehensive policy and procedure. So it may take you a month to update and pull this together, and we can certainly talk about that. But I think that would be good. And if we're not yet scheduling this for a hearing, then maybe this should come to us for the December meeting by way of the administrator's report, so that it goes out to all members and is available.
Yeah. What I'm sort of imagining is something that's going to be fairly granular about when we get a Sunshine request, how we handle it, what we weren't doing right, what steps we've taken to improve that, how we're getting the responses out, what happens when a lawyer's in trial or in deposition or
on vacation or right. No, those are all good, and you want to think in both general terms. What if you get any kind of request dealing with all the different types? the different areas in the office, but also thinking about complaints that we've gotten from various individuals and things that you know are of concern and how those particulars might be handled. You're aware of all of that, so yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Petrellis?
Oh man, it's killing me.
One quick point. I'd like a commitment from Mr. Dorsey or the task force that once the letter and policy have been written, that the information will be posted on their website so we know what their process is in terms of when they will acknowledge that they've received it and what is happening. Can we get that commitment?
Fair point. I think that goes hand in hand with what we've been working on from I'm blanking, the EOT and the
grand jury report?
The grand jury report about policy. We're putting together our own documents within the task force to give guidance to departments, and then a lot of that information we're going to recommend to be posted on websites, plus calendars, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's a fair request.
I mean, ultimately, each department should have policies and procedures that are clear and a form if that's helpful, and that should be posted and available. Information about your government, how to get information about your government shouldn't be secret. You get it. So we're getting there.
I would have no objection to posting things, responses and pending requests on our website.
I'm not even sure we were asking for that.
Okay.
But the policy itself.
Oh, the policy. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I would have no problem with that.
Right. I mean, you've got a section now under press room or public information where you say, here's what to do. That was the idea, is to post it there. We'll figure it out.
Okay. So we ready to take a roll call?
On that motion, Member Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Member Pilpil.
Aye.
Pilpil, aye. Member Hefner.
Aye.
Hefner, aye. Member David.
Aye.
David, aye. Member Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Member Hinsey.
Aye.
Hinsey, aye. Vice Chair Hyland.
Aye.
Hyland, aye. The motion passes, and it is my understanding that the chair does not intend to refer this item to a committee.
That's correct.
Would you like to consider a recess at this time?
Yes. Let's take a 15-minute recess.
The committee is on a recess for 15 minutes.
I have DirecTV.
People put $4 a gallon in gas to drive down to Daly City.
All right, guys. I'd like to call back in session this meeting.
Next on the agenda is item number 8, file number 14074, complaint filed by Paula Detesh against Aideen Vera, City Attorney's Office, for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.25 for failure to respond to various immediate disclosure requests in a timely and/or complete manner. Determination of jurisdiction. Is there any objection to jurisdiction?
Either party? Any jurisdiction issues? Seeing none.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any public comment on jurisdiction? Seeing none.
Without objection.
That motion on jurisdiction is approved without objection.
Have up to 5 minutes. Ms. Tish.
Hi there. So prior to filing these IDRs, and I have never filed one previously with the City Attorney's Office, I did make pretty big efforts with Gabriel Zittrain in their hearings with the Clark brothers here to reach out to him. I gave him my phone number. I left a couple of phone messages asking, for a minute of his time where I could kind of discuss a few things. I didn't get any return phone calls or anything from him at all. So basically, I filed an IDR email on the 30th of July to Aideen Vera. So I asked for specific information, and the response came on August 1st, so I'm contending 6125 immediacy of response. I don't think this is voluminous information that would fall into 6721B. So the close of business the following day, if I had gotten some kind of acknowledgement, we received it or so, that would have been enough for me. Then I would have hoped that maybe some information is going to come. So I believe in the next week I may have left 1 or 2 messages for Gabriel Zitron. I didn't get a response back. And so Amy Barra did respond, but again, it was the late response the reason why I'm here today. I wasn't informed repeatedly that Gabriel Zitron is the point of contact for the city attorney's office at all. So there was that. There were 2 other emails prior to that I didn't get an answer to, but that's not the reason why I'm here today. It's just the immediacy of response. That's really it.
Thank you. Is there anyone, members of the public here, speak in support of the complainant? Seeing none, the respondent, please approach.
Hi, I'm Matt Dorsey from the San Francisco City Attorney's Office. I did mention to Paula that I'm happy to work with her cooperatively on any information that she needs to get. We are going to contest this one in a couple respects. Although it does raise an interesting issue that I will be addressing in the memo about how we handle sunshine requests that are sent to deputies or lawyers when they're out of the office. And one of the things that I'm hoping we can do, I'd like to talk to my IT department to say, look, if there's an email to anybody in the office that says immediate disclosure request in the subject heading, is there a way that can be automatically CC'd to a designated email so that we don't lose any of these because of the aggressive timeline in those? I don't know the answer to that, whether we can do it technologically, but Aideen, I will also concede that Aideen, I think was responded a couple of hours late. So it was basically the morning after the day it was the close of business day deadline that it was due. In our defense, I think there had been some discussions about the importance of communicating to Gabriel Zitron, who was the point person in this, just to make sure that we could handle these in a timely manner. The second, item number 2 about the no response to the informational email. It's not uncommon that we are CC'd on information requests or sunshine requests or immediate disclosure requests to other departments. And in fact, sometimes when I work with journalists and they're having trouble with a city department, I will tell them, why don't you just CC me on it so that the recipient is aware that it's elevated to the city attorney's office. Sometimes I can make a phone call to the general counsel of a department just to say, look, if this is hitting a bureaucratic roadblock, can you make sure that the client is aware that there's something that's holding up this response? So it's not unusual that we're CC'd on things, sunshine requests, but that doesn't mean that they're to us. And if you look at that second response, it looks like we're CC'd on it. And it's not actually requesting city attorney information. So I do want to just express again, I'm happy to work cooperatively. I think this complaint raises some issues that I do want to address in how we're going to reform things and be the best city department we can with respect to sunshine. Let me revise that. The best city department, period, when it comes to sunshine. That's my aspiration. But we are going to contest this.
Members of the task force? Or any members of the public in support of the respondent? Seeing none, this is before the task force. Member Pilpel?
I'll try to keep this brief. Ms. Ditesh? On the first concern about timeliness, the email that you sent was July 30th, which I believe was a Thursday, at 3:09 in the afternoon. So during the business day, Thursday, it was sent. The reply came Friday during the business day at 10:17. The deadline that I understand is if something is received during a business day, that the response is due by 5 p.m. on the following business day. So explain to me why you think there's a timeliness problem, because it appears to me that it was responded to really timely the next morning.
This email was sent on July 30th. It was responded to on August 1st. In the memorandum prepared by DCA Cola, he acknowledges that it was a few hours late.
I see. Okay.
Matt Dorsey also acknowledged that it was a few hours late. If I can add that A.D. Vera is a First Amendment law professor.
You included that in your comments.
Okay.
I got that.
Okay.
So I didn't realize there was a day in between. Okay, so you're saying that it should have come by that Thursday. I was off on the date. Okay. So there's potentially a timeliness violation. The other email where you were just sending them the email about requesting information about Mr. Lazar, blah, 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 where you just said SOFT, you meant SOTF, complaint filed, no response. Did you believe that you were asking for a response from her?
No. I sent A.D. Vera an IDR dated August 7th, 2014. On August 12th, I was, in my own way, I suppose, maybe I should have put full sentences. I haven't received a response from you. A certain amount of days have passed. And so instead I put on August 12th, I filed a soft complaint because there was no response.
The August 7th email, you
Yes.
quoted from it in your
Yes.
response on page 355. Did you include the email itself?
I had issues with trying to find it because somebody hacked my website and removed my email, and that's not the first time, and removed quite a bit of information, which is why I'm not standing in front of you saying, speaking about this specific email. I was more focused on the one of July 30th because I did have the email there.
Okay, so for the August 7th, August 12th thing, you're not really contesting that?
Of course I'm contesting it, but so much information was removed from that email account that I was not able to find it.
Okay. I guess I'm confused. Were you believing that the August 7th or August 12th email should have been responded to or not?
I would think that it would have been responded to, but I could not, again, I have given you the August 30th email, but I could not find the one that
on
I
page
referenced.
347, you quoted from it in the August 12th email.
Right.
So
If you can accept this as evidence, here it is, August 7th at 10:14. No,
Right.
I did not get a response to that.
Well, it's not entirely clear to me. If you say request the educational background of Howard Lazar, request this, that, and the other. I
Right.
made this request to the SFAC, which was not responded to. I'm making this request pursuant to the Sunshine Ordinance. It's not entirely clear to me that someone receiving that would deem it a request to their office that they needed to respond to. It's pretty vague.
According to 6725, if an email or any other type of correspondence in the subject line says immediate disclosure request, they do have a responsibility to at least acknowledge it in a timely fashion and or respond to it. I did not get a response, and on August 12th, I sent A.D. Vera a follow-up saying that there was no response.
Okay, so at least an acknowledgement or a response saying we have no responsive documents, you should go to the Arts Commission, that's what you were looking for?
Any kind of acknowledgement that she received it. Instead, it leaves you hanging and wondering what is going on here.
I'll ask Mr. Dorsey about that in a second. And then, okay, he responded to that to some extent. I got it. Those are the two issues. So thank you. To Mr. Dorsey, can you speak to that issue as to whether or not there should have been an acknowledgement, and if the office had no records to so indicate, and refer her back to the Arts Commission?
On the second one that just said no response?
Or the August 7th email?
The August 7th email, it's my understanding that we didn't construe that as a request to us.
Okay.
And nothing about Mr. Lazar is not an employee of the city attorney's office.
Correct.
As I mentioned, it's not unusual that we're sent things about clients just to alert us. If that happens to me, sometimes I'll pass it along to the general counsel for the department just to make sure that they're aware of it so that they can advise their client that there's a pending request with them.
Okay,
it happens enough that I wouldn't have perceived it, especially just maybe, it does say immediate disclosure request in the subject line, but it's a response.
So I would say, just to be cautious, if something has immediate disclosure request, as you indicated earlier, in the subject line, it would be good to acknowledge and respond to those, whether or not they appear to be, and not to single out Ms. Detesh, but certain individuals may send not fully formed messages to the office, and again, it would be good to acknowledge them and say either thank you very much or we're not treating this as a sunshine request. You know, if people have different expectations as to how things work and they send you something and assume that you're going to respond because they've put some words together, and you're going to say, well, we're not going to treat it as that, it might be best to correct their expectation and say, we got your message, we're not treating this as a sunshine request. If we're wrong, let us know.
A better practice would be
something.
Yeah, I think a better, more courteous practice would have been to say, we've received this, I'm forwarding it to the San Francisco Arts Commission.
Okay. Either way, but you can see how others may perceive the response or lack of a response not the way that you were intending.
Correct.
In the interest of time, do we have a violation anyone would like to propose?
I just have a quick question for Mr. Dorsey. You mentioned that you alluded to this being reflected in new policies regarding when attorneys were out of the office and not receiving an email. Was Ms. Vera in the office on July 30th?
I haven't conferred with her. I think it raises a point that I'm going to be addressing in the next couple of weeks about what we can do to make sure that when there is an email that goes to somebody who's not the right person, that it's flagged. I think especially with an immediate disclosure request, because the ordinance provides that it has to say immediate disclosure request, I'd like to think that would be something we could do. It's a more difficult question when it's just a regular sunshine request, because neither the ordinance nor the way we handle requests requires that anybody fill out a form or say it's sunshine. If you ask me for anything, I will try to respond as a courtesy. That's the job of the communications director for the office. We're the government. We respond.
Right.
So I'll treat things as sunshine requests, irrespective of whether they're treated as sunshine requests. I don't know how to trigger that automatically, and that's going to be an interesting question to bring up with technology folks.
Certainly. And something that we'll probably revisit down the line when we see your letter with the updated procedures and whatnot. I'll just, to the members, my thinking on this is that I don't see a violation here. I think in the strictest sense, there may be a violation of 67.25 based on the August 1st response being a short number of hours late. I don't. Given that I already believe that the correct respondent to this complaint should be the San Francisco Arts Commission, which is essentially the essence of City Attorney Vera's opinion, I think that if we're going to find a violation against anybody, it's probably going to come out in one of the next two complaints. And for that reason, I don't see the point in finding a violation against the City Attorney's Office for a very negligible delay in their response.
Other members? Do we have rebuttals yet? No. Let's have rebuttals.
Can I ask a quick question of Ms. Ditesh?
Quickly, though. Yes.
On the August 7th request, when you were asking for information about Mr. Lazar,
Yes.
were you actually seeking that information from Ms. Vera?
I sent an IDR, immediate disclosure request, and the reason why I was seeking information from her is I made this request to the San Francisco Arts Commission, which was not responded to.
Okay, but there are other avenues to deal with that. Why would you think that the City Attorney's Office would have any of these records?
I am not psychic. I made the request on the 7th. I did a follow-up on the 12th. I didn't get even a response or an acknowledgement that this took place. So in my view, it's 6725.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Datish. Respondent, you have up to 3 minutes to provide a rebuttal. Mr. Dorsey.
I don't, on item 2, I just don't think I think it was reasonable that wasn't seen as a sunshine request or an immediate disclosure request for us. Nothing in the content of it indicated that it was for a record that we would have, that we're the custodian of. As I mentioned in item 1, I think technically there was in a matter of hours, this should have been responded to sooner. The only mitigating factor here is that, we did make an effort with the requester to make sure that she was aware that there was a person who's actually designated in the office to respond more promptly. And that it really shouldn't have gone to Aideen Vera, or if it was going to go to Aideen Vera, that it at least CC the person, as Michael Petrellis does, to make sure, not that worked out well for him, but hopefully it would have gotten to the right person, and we could have responded without it being late for 2 hours.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Complainant, you have up to 3 minutes to provide your summary rebuttal.
Anyone reading 6725, it's very clear that if an immediate disclosure request was made, I don't know if the content could be rambling, ranting nonsense that's said in the subject line, immediate disclosure request. So I made it on the 7th. I didn't get a response. On the 12th, I sent a follow-up. Whether what they saw or what they understood it really begs the issue of 6725, which is there wasn't even an acknowledgement that they received it. We'll get back to you soon. It doesn't really pertain to our office. We'll refer it to this area. It was nothing of that nature. And I believe during that time I left a phone message for Gabriel Zitrin advising him that I did make that IDR.
Thank you. Members of the task force, do I hear a motion? Seeing none. Mr. Clerk, what's the correct terminology?
Just for the records, I want to state there's no members of the public in the room.
Okay.
Due to the lack of motion, this matter is concluded.
Thank you. I think she's party.
Item number 9, file number 14071, complaint filed by Paula Ditesh against Sharon Page Ritchie, San Francisco Arts Commission, for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.16 for failing to post meeting minutes in a timely manner for the Community Arts Committee July 8th, 2014 meeting.
Members
Hold on, we're going to find jurisdiction first.
Okay.
I do want to state that I did review the request, and I did print out a page in the packet. That is my office verifying verification on the web page. On the question of jurisdiction.
Do any of the parties contest jurisdiction? Seeing none. Do we have a motion?
So moved for jurisdiction.
Second?
Second.
We pass without objection. Ms. Datesh, you have up to 5 minutes.
This specific community arts meeting, it was a late posting. It's very clear and straightforward. In Krill's response, she claims that this was a unique occurrence, that blah, 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 and it wasn't going to happen again. Not true. The following community arts meeting of September 8, the minutes posted late. The visual arts meeting of September 17th, the minutes posted late. I don't jump through the hoops anymore of notifying them that the minutes are late because it's happened so many times, and it just heightens the level of, what do you call it, watchdogisms or whatever people might call it, the level of mistrust. I was also thinking about recommending 6722A, sending a knowledgeable representative, because this particular late posting minutes violation has come up so often over a period of a year and a half that it's pretty clear that Krill, or who prior to that, doesn't seem to get it, that the minutes need to post in a timely manner. So I'm suggesting 6722A, and that's it, because there were minutes that posted late after this filing. Possibly you could consider a willful violation, since they have been violated so many times for the exact same thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no members of the public, the respondent, please approach. And you have up to 5 minutes to provide your summary.
Good evening, members of the task force. So we responded...
Sorry, could you identify yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. Rebecca Krell. I'm Deputy Director and CFO of the San Francisco Arts Commission.
Welcome. Thank you.
We responded on Tuesday, September 16th, and that response is in your packet. Did you want me to read it?
No, we have it.
Okay.
Excuse me. This is your chance to, talk about other, summarize or any other points you'd like us to consider other than what's in the package.
No, I have no further comments.
Okay, thank you very much. This is before the task force. Members? Members other than Member Pilpel, just to give everyone else a chance.
Fine.
Member Wolf.
I mean, it seems to me that we do have a violation, but I think it's important for us to acknowledge that I believe at our last meeting we approved minutes ourselves that were quite exceedingly late. So I don't know what that's worth in terms of the larger scheme of things, but clearly attentive minutes posting is something that we all need to be more mindful of, including ourselves.
Well, can I just respond briefly on that?
Member Pilpel.
So the requirement is that draft minutes be posted and available within 10 days of the meeting. There's no specific requirement as to when minutes are adopted. So you can adopt minutes now from a meeting 10 years ago if they were never adopted, so long as you posted draft minutes within 10 days of the meeting, you've met the requirement. So
thanks for the clarification. I apologize.
But I think this complaint was about posting of draft minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And
Member Hepner.
As to the larger context of this, there may very well be a violation here, and that's something that we should eke out. But just so that everybody knows, we did have the San Francisco Arts Commission and Ms. Datesh before the Compliance and Amendments Committee just last week, and this issue in particular is being closely monitored and will be back before Compliance and Amendments in December to ensure the timely posting of these items. So that said, I don't think that should obviate a violation if there is one, but that is what I thought that you were going to bring up when you mentioned the larger context.
Member Hepner, were these violations part of that same time period? In other words, has the Arts Commission had a chance to remediate or to correct, these violations, or is this all really part of the same?
I can't speak to this specific violation. Before the Compliance and Amendments Committee, we had a very comprehensive list of all back minutes, and there's a lot of back minutes and not just minutes, but audio recordings that the San Francisco Arts Commission is in the process of loading, and it's a slow process. And we admonished the San Francisco Arts Commission and encouraged them to be as hasty as possible, because that December Compliance and Amendments Committee meeting is going to be sort of this is when we're going to make a decision as to whether there is a real problem here. So I don't know that this one in particular was addressed in that compliance amendments meeting. That was more of a catalog of what needs to be done. But we're following up in December on the issue. Again, I don't think that should obviate a violation if there is one.
Member Pilpel.
Questions to Ms. Krell. The staff reorganization that you referenced in your email, can you elaborate on that? Who is now responsible for this particular committee?
So this committee has always been the responsibility of the associates, the grants associates, and there was some misunderstanding among staff, which has now been clarified. And we did merge various grants programs in the agency, so some responsibility shifted during that time.
So who is now responsible for what you're terming community initiatives?
So the committee is still the Community Arts Education and Grants Committee.
I was getting to that.
Okay, so it's still associates that are responsible for posting minutes.
Okay, so I was getting to that too. So who is actually responsible for what you're calling community initiatives? That was my question.
It's the staff formerly of Cultural Equity Grants and Community Arts and Education.
So is there now a head of what you're calling community initiatives?
Mm-hmm.
And that person is?
The program director is Judith Nemzoff.
Okay. And the associates that you referred to, those people are?
So there's 3 associates. Did you want all of their names?
Please.
Okay, so they are Weston Taruya, Thais Wortham, and Crystal Fiel.
Okay. And jointly they are responsible for just the minutes or the agenda itself and the conduct of the meeting?
Both the agenda and the minutes.
Okay. And all 3 have been trained and now know that?
Correct.
Okay. I don't want to duplicate the work that Member Hepner is overseeing at Compliance and Amendments. I have noted before, and I just want to make clear that for the purpose of the draft minutes, that can simply be much of the agenda boilerplate with some insert for staff presented on this, members of the public testified on that item, these issues were adopted, this matter was continued. It can be really a relatively bare bones draft of the minutes, and a further draft can incorporate more detail as necessary. It seems to me that compliance with the 10-day requirement for draft minutes really isn't that onerous a burden, so long as you have a meaningful agenda to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the clarification. It's helpful.
Okay.
Vice Chair Hyland?
So are we feeling a violation here, or are we going to think of the bigger picture here and let this one ride, so to speak? What's the feeling of the...
I tend to think this is another one where one can sort of find a violation. I think Member Hepner suggested this on the last item.
And not refer it.
Well, either find a violation and not refer it, or understand that this is part of a larger process that's already underway, where we are seeking to ensure that the Arts Commission gets current and stays current, and everybody else too, but in particular the Arts Commission.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's go to rebuttals, and since you're up there, Ms. Carell, go ahead if you have any summary or any last things you'd like to say. You have up to 3 minutes.
I would just say that I definitely appreciate all the support and assistance of the members of the task force. We had a really productive meeting last week or the week before, I think, to talk about guidelines for departments, to allow departments to have consistency and uniformity. So it's really helpful, and we definitely strive to continue to do better. I would note that, as far as I understand, since these July 8 meeting minutes that were posted late on August 7th, we have not had any minutes post late.
Thank you. Complainant, Ms. Datesh, you have up to 3 minutes to summarize.
Somehow it would be helpful if the respondent acknowledged this and that and apologized, or there was some kind of rapport or conversation. For example, I was able to get Ms. Krill on the phone yesterday to just remind her that there was a hearing today, and she slammed down the phone. I got a nasty email. So basically, again, this particular community arts meeting before you is not part of the body of minutes that are in the compliance thing to be heard in December. Again, there was the late posting of the next community arts thing of September 8th, and the late posting of the visual arts of September 17th. And the source of my frustration, as you can understand, is 6722A, the failure to send a knowledgeable representative. I think that's been an underlying cause that two parties, the complainant and respondent, are so far apart so often and for so long. She claims that there have been no more late postings. There are, and there have been, and it heightens the sense of mistrust, watchdogisms that a person would want to go through, but it's a very exhausting thing. And I have never experienced something like this, where such great efforts and such great pains through this task force and the subcommittee has made to educate these people, and they continue to make the same mistakes, not own up to it. We're sorry, we're going to get better, I understand the code, I'm going to look it up. This was not part of it. There are two more that are not part of it. And the reason why I named Sharon Page Ritchie the Commission's secretary in this complaint is because I feel that if there are so many different people posting minutes, I don't know how many, between 5 and 7 possibly, that it's her duty to supervise and make sure that the process gets taken care of correctly. We're not hearing any even acknowledgement from Ms. Krill. And that's the most distressing aspect of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Chairman, Vice Chair Hyland, I would like to note that the memorandum from the city attorney has a slight error in it, in stating that the Arts Commission has not provided a response to the complaint. Right. The Arts Commission did respond. I believe they did that on September the 16th. I just wanted to note that. And I also wanted to provide a few notes on the work I've been doing with the Arts Commission. Mm-hmm. I have been making several suggestions to the Arts Commission. They have accepted many of them, and we are still currently working on additional suggestions. As far as I know, the majority of the minutes for the Arts Commission are up to date, except for the Executive Committee. And I am monitoring the Arts Commission for the next 2 months, just to ensure compliance for the remainder of the year.
So on that,
go ahead.
Although we found previous violations and compliance and amendments is monitoring that, and Victor's on this, that review is not limited to the past violations. We're not going to leave this until they're up to date and we're sure that they will maintain, right?
Right. And in my understanding, I mean, this is going to compliance and amendments. If not this specifically, we are doing a global review. Victor Young is doing an even more intensive review on his time. And if things aren't up to date, I mean, this will be before some subcommittee, either compliance amendments or ERT, until this is clean.
Okay. So regardless of whether we find the violation today, we're already on it, is the point.
Right. And I'm sorry, that update of their response, does that mean they are not in violation, or they still are?
All the minutes are currently up to date, as far as I know, except for executive committees.
No, I was talking about their response. That there was a response from the Arts Committee.
Yes, there was. So there was just a slight error in the city attorney's memo. He did not notice the Arts Commission's response.
Okay. All right. So, do we have a motion? Seeing no motion, this matter is concluded.
Next on the agenda is file number 14072, complaint filed by Paula Tetesh against Howard Lazar and Kate Patterson Murphy, San Francisco Arts Commission, for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.25 for failure to respond to various immediate disclosure requests in a timely and/or complete manner.
Jurisdiction? Is either party contesting? Seeing not. Motion to find jurisdiction?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Pass without
There
objection.
being no objection, the jurisdiction is, motion for finding jurisdiction is passed.
Ms. Tetesh, go ahead.
Okay, this is not 15 unanswered IDRs like the last time I was before you, which is kind of a very anxiety-provoking thing. I believe this is 5. And I'm going off the response of Rebecca Krill. Basically, we all know that 6725, immediacy of response, is the close of business the following day. However, Ms. Krill doesn't seem to understand that, which is, again, why I cite 6122A, failure to send a knowledgeable representative. Her claim is that the response was not late. It was late because it was sent on the 12th, and the response was on the 14th. Anyway, she claims over and over again that these responses were not late. All you have to do is look at the dates, and you will find that the responses were not at the close of the business the following day. The most distressing is the inability of Kate Patterson to send one concise email, which I've cited in the past. I would get 20 emails from her a day where she wants to dialogue with me, which was driving me insane. The second complaint was the most distressing. She cites emails sent to DCA Catherine Mahoney, but doesn't say what the emails are. So I continued to ask her, well, can you please just send me the emails since I never received them in the first place? She never did. She just continued to send me this letter of Catherine Mahoney. And at one point, she did send a PDF attachment at the end of one, which I couldn't open. She didn't even know what it was or what it referenced, and she considered the thing closed. So that particular IDR was not satisfied because I didn't get the information. Then we go to number 3, Patterson's response. Oh, this was the really very bizarre one. Okay, they claim a late response because they needed to prepare and research for a hearing. That hearing was, in fact, the budget and finance, the budget presentation. I believe it was the government and audit, and what it resulted in was a CBS local news report. The Arts Commission was reamed for their outrageous budget, which I included in the packet. The budget chair doesn't sit well with the city attorney's office, and it made the news. That was their excuse for the late response. I don't see what an excuse could be. You file an IDR at the close of business. Again, you might get an acknowledgement. We received it. They might put it off 14 days. I got nothing. So what we're seeing again is they acknowledge that as being a late response. Well, I questioned what they were doing at their budget meeting since it made the news. I don't find that to be an excuse. So I think I covered everything, and I'm going off the response of Ms. Krill, which is, again, I don't think she's knowledgeable in Sunshine Matters. Again, citing 6125, and again saying that this is a persistent problem with the Arts Commission. And it's been suggested in the past by Member Highland that possibly, they could acknowledge that they received their request, but they don't comply. And you see, I have no rapport with Ms. Krill at all. It's not like she's even acknowledging that they've made mistakes, which is the most frustrating aspect of it all. It leads you to believe that this will continue, like the late postings of the minutes. Did I cover everything? I hope I did. So going off the memorandum of DCA COLA, the late response, and that's it.
Thank you. The respondent, you have up to 5 minutes to respond.
Thank you. So, let's see. I responded on Tuesday, September 16th to Mr. Young's request. I believe that's in your packet. I can walk through that if that's helpful.
I'm sorry, you were referencing the emails that you sent that are outlined in...
Right, so this is the response to Mr. Young on Tuesday, September 16th, which summarizes the number 14072, the 5 complaints. So the first complaint, we received the IDR on August 12th at 10:55 p.m. After work hours, so we received it the following day on August 13th.
Right, you said that you received it on the 12th. Let's be clear, it was sent on the 12th at 10:55?
Was sent to the Arts Commission at 10:55.
You received it on the 13th.
On the 13th.
That morning.
Right, and we replied, Kate Patterson Murphy replied the very next day, August 14th. So that response was not late. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's lengthy. But the second complaint was also not late. I don't know if it's helpful to you for me to read all this or if you've already read it, but we're alleging that the second complaint was also not late. The third complaint was furnished 2 days later, so that was 2 days late. because staff had other high priority items that they had to complete before completing the request. The 4th was timely. And the 5th, again, was 2 days late.
Member Hepner, does any of this ring a bell as far as your...
These did not come up before compliance and amendments. I do have a couple questions if you're through with your opening presentation. As to the third complaint, was that, it's unclear to me whether this was an IDR, whether it was marked as an IDR. It's certainly a request for information. The information requested a verifiable reason why no one was in your office at 11 a.m. today to conduct business. I'm going to backtrack and say it's not certain that falls under. In any event, a response was provided to that on July 23rd, which is
correct.
If that was an IDR, that was a late response. If that was an IDR. Was it your understanding that was an IDR? And if so, how did you come to that understanding?
I would need to research that particular complaint. It's several months ago, and it was before I was in my current position. I have actually copious amounts of backup documentation here, so...
Member Hepner, it looks to me like they're acknowledging that it was an IDR in there. And
yeah,
that it
the
was late.
subject is immediate disclosure request on Friday, July 18th.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like they're acknowledging, and they were a day late there.
On the 23rd, he says, "You are mistaken. The director and assistant were both present." So, I mean, I know at your committee, we did have some discussion about, questions versus requests for documents, and so I guess that still remains an open question, but
right.
we do make an effort to reply to all requests in a timely manner, regardless of what. I mean, obviously, in this case, there's no documents responsive, but
yeah. Right. If I could ask a question of Ms. Datesh. So, as to the third complaint, in which you requested a verifiable reason why no one was in your office at 11 a.m. to conduct business. Did you receive an adequate response to that request on July 23rd? And if not, why not?
I'm referring to page 409 of your packet. The original IDR was sent on July 18th at 2:06. The response came on July 23rd at 2:12. No, I don't consider this an adequate response. You are entirely mistaken. I see, this is so typical. I was actually there. I had to go back twice. It was to renew a permit. I actually went with somebody because I wanted to. I didn't feel comfortable. I wanted somebody to go there with me. I sort of anticipated there would be problems because it's been so problematic in the past. So there was no director or assistant at the door. Actually, I was there. He rang the buzzer. It took quite some time for somebody to open the door. And he asked, well, I would like to renew a permit, and the woman had no answers for him. She took the money order, and he was left. She closed the door, and he was left standing there. So I came to the front of the door, and I said,
Datesh, please try to answer the question more directly. Thank you.
Go ahead. State again what the question was. Was it an adequate response? No, it was not.
Okay, that was my question. And was there a reason that you needed an immediate response to that request? I don't want to set a precedent whereby we justify the basis for an immediate disclosure request based on the need for the information, but I'm wondering if there was a pressing reason, a time that
There
you
was a
needed that
pressing
information the
reason
next day.
because the permit expired that day.
Okay.
Yes.
So perhaps a timeliness violation. We're leaning towards that as a group. Member Pilpel.
Question, Ms. Krell.
Please keep it brief.
Yeah. The log, the log that your office keeps of sunshine requests, that's still the practice?
Yes, it's alive and well. I have a copy right here.
Excellent. So all of these requests from Ms. Datesh are logged?
I believe they are, yes.
Okay. Without my looking at the log, can you tell us of the sunshine requests for the last year or so? Are the great preponderance of them from Ms. Datesh?
So beginning in
Why is this relevant?
I'll come to that in a second.
fall, right, so fall 2013.
Not looking for specific numbers.
Oh, just generally speaking? Yes, I would say it's about 95%, maybe 97%.
Okay. The reason that I asked that is going back to the rule of reason. It seems to me that if Ms. Datesh is making multiple requests over many days for lots of information, that information should be provided to her, but you can establish some limits about how much time goes into the endeavor in any given day so that resources are available for other functions in the office and for providing information to other people.
Fair point.
So, you know, particularly on these several occasions when Ms. Datesh refers to multiple requests on the same day.
Yeah.
So, you know, in this case, for example, that page 409 request about a verifiable reason why no one was in your office at 11 o'clock, the response may not have been timely. Yes, it's also an open question as to whether or not that really is an immediate appropriate as an immediate disclosure request, but it doesn't seem to me that that delayed response is a material problem.
So I think once again we are weighing the big picture and what's
Yeah.
going on with compliance and this department and these individual cases.
I mean, if someone had said, I need to pay a fee, I couldn't find someone yesterday, it was due yesterday, can you waive the late payment charge or something, then I can see some basis for it. Just the general, you know, I don't think there was anyone in your office today, can you please explain that? That doesn't seem to me to be a high concern.
I hate to say it, Ms. Datesh, but it smacks of kicking a dog down when they're already down. That's, you know, we have listened to many of your complaints, and I think your IDRs go beyond pure information seeking from this body, and you know, it just, you know, I've heard enough of these cases where you know, we have something good and positive going on with Ms. Carell and with the Arts Commission. We think we do. Respectfully, we think we do. And I think that work should be given a chance to flourish and move forward. And I'm not sensing any violation in this case either. So on that note, I'm going to ask Member Wolf.
I don't know whether anyone has a formal definition of how this is defined, but I read through the description, and what we have is we have a request that came in after hours and then is received the next business day, but it was technically sent the same day, and the language seems to be somewhat ambiguous in this nature. Has this issue of what the terminology of next by end of next business day means under the legal terms? I'm looking at Member Hepner because he's the one with the law degree, but if anyone else can weigh in, that'd be great too.
Well, in my experience, when you, and it's completely different context, but things sent after hours are presumed received the next morning.
And I believe that resonates with with past cases we've heard. Did Mr. Clerk have...
That is our office policy.
Also,
Great,
okay.
thank you.
Okay. Well, may I just cut to the chase?
Yeah.
Is there a motion? Would someone like to propose a motion on this?
That's great. I have a plan for that. I'm going back east. This whole
Seeing none, this matter is concluded.
waste of time.
Thank you, Ms. Datesh. Thank you, Ms. Carell.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There being no motion on this matter, the matter is concluded. Item number 11, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items.
The Ethics Commission letter is something that we probably consider next week. Is that on next week's agenda, Victor?
I believe that they responded, and they are not hearing it in October. They have pushed it to their November meeting.
Right.
But I do believe you're right then that we are discussing that at the November 5th meeting.
Right.
So that we can bring our statement to the November 27th
exactly
meeting of the Ethics Commission.
Or to the staff beforehand.
Or to the staff beforehand. And the idea was, I have a copy of their latest. I was going to try and get something in our packets to Victor by Thursday then.
Yes.
That's great.
So we can discuss it November 5th and then be able to send over a final version to the Ethics Commission the week before their meeting.
Great. And
As soon as we could do it.
Or as soon as we can do it.
And I won't be in town the day that they have that meeting, so if you could act as a bridge to Chair Washburn and bring her up to speed on where we are, so that
Certainly, and I know that Chair Washburn was going to be at the Ethics Commission meeting.
I think so. Yeah. Okay. And perhaps yourself.
You are here.
I'll throw it out there.
You are here next week, right?
Yes, I'm here next week.
Okay. And they did. The memo was handed out last night at the Ethics Commission meeting. I was at that meeting, and it was just mentioned that Deputy Director Minority had been here, had also been to compliance and amendments, and was anticipating our further response in November, and that was part of the.
Okay, I just want to make sure we keep on the ball on that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Member Pilpo?
Yeah, just two other things. On the Rec Park issue with Mr. Mayanki, I believe that is back before us next week as well. Victor, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So I have drafted an updated draft referral letter and some proposed findings that I think help in that instance. So I will get those to Victor also by Thursday.
Yes.
Please make sure that they're in timely, otherwise we won't be able to talk on them. Yeah.
So I hope to get those
Thank you
correct.
for doing that.
I've got some further work to do on that. And just finally, I wanted to note for the record, maybe we can talk about it more next week if people want to. There were 4 passings, if you will, in the last few weeks that I thought were of note to this task force, and I wanted to make that clear on the record. 3 individuals and 1 publication. Michael Harris, the original author at the Chronicle of the series called Your Secret Government in 1952 that resulted in the Brown Act, passed away. That was, I think, a very significant passing. Task Force will recall that he was actually asked to write the preamble in wherever it is, 54950. 0.2, I think. Anyway, that talks about the people retaining control of the institutions that they've created, and I've always found that to be very powerful language in state law. So that was significant to me. And in addition, Ben Bradley of the Washington Post and Bill German of the Chronicle also passed away in the last few weeks. And finally, and very significantly, the Bay Guardian is currently no more, which is just unbelievable to even conceptualize. And I would say all 4 individuals and publication have been instrumental in open government, citizen control, and accountability. And frankly, the Bay Guardian has been very responsible for this task force even existing. So I just think that that's all very significant and unfortunate, tragic, and I just wanted to call the task force's attention to it. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Philbell. Thank you.
Chair Harmon. But I also want to add, it's somewhat tangential, but I think just the fight for the little guy over the big guy, the passing of Ted Gullickson also on the same day that the Bay Guardian is no more, I think was fairly, it's a huge loss to San Francisco.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Did you reflect those in the minutes?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Member Wolf?
Victor, on a lighter note, is this the last Tuesday meeting that we're going to have?
This is the last Tuesday's scheduled meeting for the full task force, yes.
For now.
So
last special meeting.
So it's just going to be Wednesdays moving forward after this?
The first
Until
Wednesday.
further notice, yes. And I do not believe we will have a need for the Tuesday meetings in the foreseeable future.
How's our backlog looking?
Our backlog is very low.
Great. Job well done, guys. What about with Anonymous?
We will be addressing those in the complaint committee.
Okay.
Which has its first meeting when?
I believe will be November the 10th.
Great.
I do want to note that there are some issues with our procedures that need to be amended at our November 5th meeting to
Facilitate that?
facilitate the complaints committee. They will be on the agenda.
Good.
The next meeting of this Sunshine Orange Task Force is next week on Wednesday and November the 5th.
Very good.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.